Hi there, I'm Alan Baxter. I'm an author of horror, dark fantasy, crime, mystery. I never met a genre I didn't like, and I mix them all together, but most of my stuff is pretty dark. You'll find me on the Australian Book Lovers website, australianbooklovers.com. You'll find most of my stuff under the horror section. I hope you'll check it out.
Once upon a time. Welcome to Australian Book Lovers, your destination for imagination.
Hello and a big warm welcome to everyone. A huge thank you for joining us for the Australian Book Lovers podcast. Our mission is to bring fabulous Australian and Indigenous literature that spans a whole range of genres to book lovers around the globe, as well as fantastic resources and information for passionate authors looking to write their next bestseller. I'm Veronica Strachan, fantasy, memoir and picture book writer, reader, and your co-founder and host for today, coming to you from Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country, all a part of the Kulin Nation in Victoria.
And I am Darren Kazanko, horror and science fiction author, passionate reader, co-host and co-founder of Australian Book Lovers, coming to you today from Corner Country on a very brisk, shall we say, winter's morning for episode number brisk. 26.
26, yeah, so we are into our second quarter of a century.
Yes, and I'm trying to think, is there something cool about the number 26? And I realise that there is, because technically I like to consider the number 3 as one of my lucky numbers. So 26 is, 6 divided by 2 is 3. So yes, 26 is my lucky number. I'm officially making that one of my new additions.
Oh, very good, very good. I'll let you get away with that one.
It's fun to play with numbers, but
it
I
is
still
indeed.
don't like math.
No? Oh, there you go. Math does make the world go round, that and physics, but anyway, there you go.
Yes.
Which leads me on, talking about physics, leads me on to thinking about some news. So how about we share a little news from around the world and from the website?
Let's go. News.
So my segue from physics is that, in fact, we've got the announcement of the shortlist for the Arthur C. Clarke Award. So sci-fi people will know that that's a really, really good thing to do. Arthur C. Clarke did some fantastic sci-fi in his time, and it's really interesting to have a look at the shortlist. So it's The Infinite by Patience Agbabi. And I'm just going to give you, it's a mind-bending, time-twisting adventure for readers who loved Time Travelling with a Hamster and A Wrinkle in Time. So it's the first book in the Leap
That definitely sounds interesting already.
Yeah, it's the first book in the Leap cycle. And I'm pretty sure that Patience Agbabi is a writer of colour, person of colour, so that's fantastic to see that there. The second one is The Vanished Birds by Simon. Now, I might say this incorrectly. I suspect there's a Spanish background there. Jimenez, and that's The Vanished Birds. And The Vanished Birds is Nina Imani is a woman out of place and outside of time. Decades of travel through the stars have condensed into mere months for her, though the years continue to march steadily onwards for everyone she's ever known. The captain of a transport ship, contract to the Umbre Corporation, she lives only for the next paycheck until the day she meets a mysterious boy fallen from the sky. That's good.
That's always been a strange concept, hasn't it? The idea of when you travelled at a certain speed, your, I guess, experience of time will be different for other people's experience of time. And
yes.
I've had this thought experiment for many years now, and I've chatted with a lot of people, and that is, if you, for example, Veronica, if we popped you on a spaceship about, let's say, 15 kilometres above the Earth.
Yeah.
Now, there's nowhere...
I'm there, by the way, put me on a spaceship, I am there.
Now, but regardless of where you are on the planet, or around the planet, should I say, if we're talking on a mobile phone together, the signal is quite fast. There's almost no delay. Now, if you slowly accelerate around the planet, and so you're not traveling distance, but your speed is increasing, and you get faster and faster and faster, what happens to our conversation? Because technically your signal is always within instant range, but according to physics, the faster you get, the slower my time will be to yours.
Yes.
So does your voice start to go like this? In which case, what happens to the signal itself? Because the signal that's emitted from the mobile is that bound by the same laws? But nonetheless, I don't know. It does my head in. It'll be fun though.
It would be fun, yeah. And like I say, just put me on that spaceship. That will be absolutely fun.
Oh yes, I'd love it.
Yeah. So it was lovely reading some of these the blurbs from the Arthur C. Clarke shortlist.
And
so
what a writer he was. I mean, you
yeah.
can't say his name without. Well, look, dare say there's not many people out there that don't recognise his name.
Yeah,
so he's had such a huge impact on the world, really.
Yeah, and I mean, even like his Wikipedia entry, they call him a futurist, and I mean that's absolutely true, because the things that he talked about, so many of them are in the world now, But of course, a lot of people think of him in terms of 2001: A Space Odyssey. What are you doing, Hal? But anyway. Very
Did
good.
you know where I was for a little bit of trivia? I didn't realise Hal was actually, they weren't allowed to use IBM.
No, that's right.
So it's the letter prior to it, HI, and then obviously
there you go.
B, and LM. So Hal is actually just one step back from IBM,
which worked way better than IBM.
Yes, I think so.
Because Hal gave him gave the AI a real name. But there you go. Yeah, so that's very good. In fact, he was also an undersea explorer. I didn't know that.
Oh, okay. Neither did I.
There you go. But anyway, so have a look. Arthur C. Clarke. Yes, he was, in fact, Sir Arthur Charles Clarke. But anyway, we're going off track, as we are wont to do. The next book on the short list is Vagabonds by Hao Jingfang and translated by Ken Liu. Now, I've read something of Ken Liu. I can't remember what I've read. But anyway, can the void between two worlds be bridged? So this is AD 2201. So just over a century ago, the Martian colonies declared their independence. After a brief conflict, Earth and Mars cut ties, carving separate trajectories into the future, viewing each other with suspicion and even hatred. 5 years ago, a group of Martian students were sent to Earth as goodwill ambassadors from the Red Planet. Now the young men and women are coming home, escorting a delegation of prominent Terrans to see if the two worlds can bridge the void that has opened up between them. Almost immediately, negotiations break down and old enmities erupt. So there you go. So there's a bit more about that, but that's good. So there's a non-English speaking as first language book comes as well. The Edge of Heaven by R.B. Kelly, 2119. The bi-level city of Creau-Bassy towers over the wastelands of central France. Towers over the wastelands of central France. Built as a permanent relocation centre for the dispossessed, Creau has become a hotbed of simmering resentment and unrest. The authorities keep tight control, not least because outlawed anauts, in brackets artificial humans, are known to hide among its citizenry. So there you go. It goes on and tells you lots more bits and pieces, but this is a debut, which is fantastic. This one I was very excited to see. The Animals in That Country by Australian author Laura Jean McKay. So fantastic about the animals in that country. Laura Jean's cover already has the ABIA winner. She won the Stella Prize. She's on the shortlist for the Stella Prize, and she won the Victorian Premier's Literary Awards in 2021. So a really good book that's been on my radar for a while. So now that it's on the shortlist for the Arthur C. Clarke, I think, oh my goodness, how could I not want to read that? So, out on the road, no one speaks. Everything talks. Hard-drinking, foul-mouthed and allergic to bullshit, Jean is not your usual grandma. She's never been good at getting on with other humans, apart from her beloved granddaughter Kimberly. Instead, she surrounds herself with animals, working as a guide in an outback wildlife park. And although Jean talks to all her charges, she has a particularly soft spot for a young dingo called Sue. As disturbing news arrives of a pandemic sweeping the country, Jean realises this is no ordinary flu. Its chief symptom is that its victims begin to understand the language of animals, first mammals, then birds and insects too. As the flu progresses, the unstoppable voices become overwhelming and many people begin to lose their minds, including Jean's infected son Lee. When he takes off with Kimberly heading south, Jean feels the pull to follow her kin. So there you go. How good a premise is that?
Yeah, that's a very strange premise. And it
Yeah.
just had me thinking, well, on one hand, that it would be fun to understand animals, but on the other hand, to hear them all at once, it'd be like suddenly if you could pick up or had no control over hearing all of the signals that flood us at every second, every mobile signal, every television signal, every radio signal, every, Wi-Fi and everything. It'd just, it would drive you mad, I think. But to be able to talk to animals, I mean, that would be so cool. But would it be? Is our interaction with animals perfect the way it is? In the sense of you have to develop a whole different way of communicating and building trust, and the emotions that come with it are completely unique, I guess, in that relationship. Yeah,
really interesting. So I will definitely be reading that one. Fantastic. And the final one on the short list is called Chilling Effect by Valerie Valdez. Chapter 1, Save the Cats. So it's a debut space opera that features an irresistible foul-mouthed captain and her misfit crew, kidnappers, alien emperors, psychic cats, and she's out of coffee. So I think that's a nice tongue-in-cheek, and you might get some really good snarky dialogue happening, which I really love, that kind of stuff.
And a psychic cat. I mean, you've won me over already.
Yes, I know, right? So we are definitely cat people. So this is very good. Okay, so that was my sci-fi news for the day. And I thought it would be good to share something that our interview with Jack Kregas that you did, and there was bits and pieces that you talked about, true stories, is to look at one of the frequently asked questions on the Australian Society of Authors website. This is open to everybody. You don't need to be a member, although I strongly suggest you do because there's some great benefits. But the question is, what do I do if I think my work may have defamation issues? So I thought that, given that Jack has included a lot of real people in his stories, so defamation is a communication from one person to at least one other that injures the reputation of an identifiable third person in circumstances where the communicator has no legal defence. So this is Australian-based. The law of defamation aims to balance the right of free speech with protecting an individual's reputation against harm. So if you're writing a work that includes real people, defamation is an issue that you have to consider, even if you've chosen to fictionalise the work or rename the person involved. And while you can't generally defame dead people, and justification is a defence against defamation, provided you can prove the veracity of your work, it's still essential that you get legal advice, as defamation is a really complex area of law. So 2 more little points. If you're publishing traditionally, your publisher is going to assess the content, and if they've got any queries, then they can commission a legal reading and assess the risks and those kind of things. And you might need to make some changes, and if you don't do it, then they may well terminate your agreement. If you're self-publishing, it's critical that you seek legal advice as well, as you are solely responsible if someone featured in your book decides to take action against you. And you can start with the Arts Law website, so that's artslaw.com.au, and they've got an information sheet on defamation law, so you can have a look at that and just make a start. Make sure that you are covering yourself if you've got identifiable third person in your story.
Yeah, and look, I'm definitely not a lawyer, but my guess is, as a rule of thumb, if you are doing a biography or something along the lines of a memoir, then, and you are including information about a third party, I guess there's that defining line. There's the truth, and then there's the perception of the truth. Perception of the truth might get you in trouble depending on if you're bringing your view into a situation of, your interpretation of. But if there's a fact that is undisputable, then that's fine. You can't be classed as defaming somebody if you're just stating a known fact, because a fact is a fact. But I'm guessing, and I'm just thinking out loud here.
Is it a fact?
Well, for example, if you've been found guilty of a crime, then that's a fact, isn't it? So
Things on public record, yeah.
Yeah,
for
a
sure.
fact. But if I say this person should have been guilty of a crime, then that's an opinion, and whether that, so
yes.
it must be an interesting tightrope
complex
to walk
space.
and then of course, then what about if you're writing about somebody in another country? Which laws apply? Because
Time to go to Arts Law. They can download their their little PDF there, but also think carefully about how it's going to be received, because it's interesting as we get involved in our stories and we write the words that we sometimes forget the impact that they will have on other people. So that's not only from an entertainment and enlightenment and enjoyment value, but also, on words that may be about events years past. I know when I wrote my memoir, I took a lot of the really raw stuff out after the first draft, because having written it, I got it on paper. Then I thought, you know what, I don't actually need to say that about that incident or, those people or whatever, because I know those people have changed. I changed. It was 20 years since the events. And as you mentioned, my interpretation of the events, even though I'd written them down as they happened or close to the time, was my perception. So I did take out some of the things that I thought, you know what, that could come across as pretty hurtful. I've moved on. I'm sure they've moved on. And you think about that after you've done that first draft.
Yeah, but at the same time, at the time of a particular incident, the emotions that came with that is a reality, isn't it?
Oh,
and
yeah,
so when
absolutely
you're looking back
valid.
in time, then sometimes it's good to maintain that as part of a story, because it did have, for example, it did happen, or it was an experience you went through, and but you may be talking about someone you hated at the time, but you may love them now. But that doesn't mean you didn't hate them then.
No, that's right.
It's tricky. But you raise a good point with regards to the impact of words, and I think writing is powerful, but does it actually diffuse one of the old sayings, and that is, that I grew up with, it, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. That's not actually true, is it?
No.
Words are far more powerful than sticks and stones, because a stone hits the ground at some point. Words can echo forever when you write them down, and they can change. They can change perceptions, can't they? So they can literally, like you said, the little words in the right places can shift a whole lot of human beings.
Yeah, most definitely.
So bring up the sticks and stones.
Yeah,
Just don't write bad things about me, please. I'm turning off all YouTube comments.
Oh, yes. No, don't do that. Can you tell us a little bit about some books we have on the website on Australian Book Lovers? Tell us about some Australian authors. What have you got for us?
Yeah, I'd like to tell you about a couple of new entries, and then also I'd like to spotlight a couple of books by a fantastic author who is actually part of our podcast today, which is, of course, Jack Kregas. But I wanted to start with a new addition to our fantasy selection. The title is called Swords of Deception, and it is by author Rowan Staeffler.
We've got Rowan's written the Black Witch series, hasn't he?
Oh, he may have. I'm not too sure. But the Swords of Deception reads as follows. 3 years ago, rogue council member Selena Marr massacred all the students at the Witches Academy and left Elamar Vansel for dead.
Whoa.
Pretty good opening, isn't it? Now, still haunted by that day, Elamar seeks to track Selena down and settle the score. But her mission is nearly halted before it even begins, because the Council of Witches prohibits members from killing, even if justified. Given the gravity of Selena's crime, the Council bends this rule and approves Elamar's mission. Searching for Selena takes Elamar to a royal ship, a forgotten forest, and a secret island. Along the journey, she begins hearing stories that suggest Selena's horrendous act may actually have been justified. Is Elamar chasing the wrong enemy? Has the council been harbouring secrets from its members? Getting the answers right is critical. The peace of the entire kingdom is at stake. How cool does that sound?
That sounds super cool. And I've just looked up the cover because I thought, right, I need to get that. Great cover.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and I just love that premise. One, obviously, violence, but then bending the rules to allow violence to become a justification, and then possibly discovering the violence was justified.
Yes.
And
Is violence ever really justified? Yeah.
Yeah,
I know we fall into that trope, but yeah.
but then find out maybe being used as a pawn. What a great story idea. Yeah. I like that.
And Rowan, The Black-Eyed Witch is Rowan's novel, and Foreboding, which is another one about a black-eyed witch.
Oh, of
also,
course, yes. Yes, listed on Australian Book Lovers, yes.
Yeah.
Now, the next title I would like to tell you about is book number 4 by T.S. Simons. It's called, of the Antipodes series, and that is called Caim.
Excellent.
Caim.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, a brand new release under our science fiction genre. So Caim by author T.S. Simons reads as follows. Sometimes traditions shouldn't be forgotten. Going back to their Gaelic roots, the community entrusts their safety to the circle of protection the Caim provides. As it envelops them, Freya and Caim are blissfully happy. Living with their family and friends in their isolated community on Lewis, they finally feel safe and content. But when old acquaintances arrive with shocking news, they leave their safety behind as they try to learn the truth of why they were chosen and what diabolical plans the scientific communities have designed just for them. Love, loyalty, and friendships are tested in this thrilling 4th installment of the Antipodes series. So yes, awesome stuff, and that is Caim by author T.S. Simons.
Fantastic. 4 beautiful books.
Yeah, and I think episode 5 will be coming out later this year, if I remember correctly, when we chatted with her.
I can't remember now. Yes.
Well, if not, let's hopefully it does. Well,
go Tanya, get writing.
Go Tanya, yes. Now we've got another new edition, and this is under our mystery genre as well as our fantasy, and it is by author P.A. Mason, and the book is called A Flytrap Fiasco, and now it is a cozy mystery thriller, which I wasn't aware, well, not highly aware of what a cozy mystery was.
Yeah, cozy mysteries, they're great.
What's the easiest way to describe a cozy mystery?
So not too much blood and violence, I'd say. So it's a comfy read. It's language friendly, plot friendly, light-hearted, I guess is the thing. Even though it still has a mystery, there still could be murders, there still could be those kind of things, but it's treated in a kind of comfy way. Yeah, and actually, P.A. Mason, I won't say her first name because she may not like me to do that, but she's a very prolific writer, and she's got a great series about Gretchen's misadventures. So really interesting to see her going to cozy mysteries. I quite like those, so I might have to have a look at this one. Tell us about it.
Yeah, absolutely. A Flytrap Fiasco reads as follows. Hey guys, I'm Cat Crow, and I want to tell you about the time I spent in California, which ended abruptly when someone was murdered in my store. Maybe moving out west from Arkansas wasn't the best move, but before everything went south, I had a lot of fun tending my magical plants and catching some waves in my spare time. I never imagined things could go so wrong, or that I'd find myself caught up in a mystery where everyone was a suspect. And that is A Flytrap Fiasco. And I suspect it holds quite a few surprises because, yes, it's a witchy cozy mystery. So it's not
even
just
better.
a cozy mystery.
There you go.
And it is to be found under our mystery and fantasy. So that might give you a little hint that, maybe there's a few surprises to be found within the pages. Absolutely. I like the idea of... sounds like someone who loves surfing there, so catching some waves. So a surfer who has someone murdered in their store. Yeah,
a little bit of fantasy. It's good.
Magical plants sounding pretty good already.
All right, so now I found a definition for you from Ingram Spark. Thank you, Ingram Spark. A cozy mystery is the gentlest subset of the broad genre of crime writing. It's a comfort read that leaves you satisfied and at one with the world, rather than scared to sleep alone with the lights out.
Okay.
So there you go.
So I guess it's weighing more heavily on the mystery part as opposed to the thriller part, because obviously a thriller is a little bit more of on the edge of your seat, whereas a mystery is whodunit. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
what's the movie called? Knives Out, which came out last year, I think.
Yeah, I don't know that one.
Yeah, it was a very Agatha Christie style mystery.
Yeah, so Miss Marple
Yeah.
would be, I guess, considered more in the cosy mystery kind of thing because, yeah, even though it's a bit scary in parts, you're not scared to sleep alone with the lights out.
I love a good mystery, except for there's been many a book I've read back in the day and, shows I've watched where you get so enthralled with the mystery. And, of course, the fun of a mystery is trying to guess. It's trying to
yes.
put together the clues. And then, but there's nothing worse than at the end, it turns out it's a brother that was never introduced in the book.
Oh, that's
and
unfair.
You go, well, hang
You're
on, that's
never
not
going to
fair.
get that.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. But no, but that does sound super cool. And that is, of course, a Flytrap Fiasco. And it's actually, the subtitle is Trouble Down Under 0.5. So, yeah, that sounds intriguing as well. So I'm guessing it may be the first of a series or part of a series.
Yes, yeah. Well, that's
one way to find out.
Yeah, Gretchen's misadventures were little short novellas that built up into. No, I guess they were novellas. Anyway, they're quick reads that built up into, quite a significant box set. So, yeah. And I'm pretty sure you can find them on Amazon under like 2-hour reads or something like that, or short reads.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, definitely it sounds like P.A. Mason has a lot of fun writing it. It looks like fun. I think her books, to me, they promise a whole lot of fun, which is
absolutely.
What more can you ask? Yeah. Now, I'd also like to spotlight a couple of books from our guest today, which is Mr. Jack Kregas. Now, he has many, many books. This a gentleman started writing not so long ago, but he has not stopped since he started. And he actually has a new book coming out. The book is titled The Vegas Transactions, and it's by author Jack Kregas. Now, set in the early 70s when Las Vegas was growing, Elvis, Sinatra and Liberace were its star performers. The mafia-controlled casinos were fighting new laws to keep their illegal operations alive. The Vegas Transactions explores the personalities of the mafia insiders which controlled casinos and the mentality of returning Vietnam vets woven in the history of Las Vegas in the 1970s. And that is The Vegas Transactions by Mr. Jack Kregas. Now, Jack does live in Australia now. He's we can definitely call him an Aussie, but he is, of course, American by origin, and he is very much a professional gambler to a certain extent. So this is a gentleman writing about something he knows very well. So sounds very cool because myself, I haven't been to Vegas, but I do love that whole aesthetic of, gambling. And I don't love gambling, but I love the aesthetic of, people putting their lives on the line and taking that huge chance to where it's either going to change their life for good or worse, and the seedy underbelly of crime. And
Really?
Yeah. I don't want to be a part of it. I love watching it and reading about it.
Right.
Yeah.
When it's kind of divorced and a little bit unreal, yeah, I think the reality of it for me is like not so good.
The concept of Las Vegas is so cool. Desert, just build something and they will come. And they literally did. And when I spent time out at Anamuka, which I haven't done for a while, but the open one out there, that town is slowly, not shrinking, but less and less people are mining out there. Mm-hmm. But when you go underground, the size of the open mines themselves can be enormous. And I always thought, man, why don't they turn these into underground casinos and just bring the biggest high rollers out here and give them a chance to lose all their money? And it would be and high rollers, I think, are always looking for that next rush.
Yeah.
So the idea of being able to fly to Australia and go to these casinos that are underground would bring them in droves and would bring so much money to the area, but I know that I guess one of the reasons would be health and safety, because there's not much health and safety rules out there when it comes to the mines. So you're kind of taking your own
they're kind of
chances when
in
you
the
go
news
under
at the moment, aren't they? With our borders closed and with the mine.
Oh yes,
cluster happening at the moment. Yeah. Plus, I think that the worry with organised crime. We've had casino reviews, New South Wales and Victoria looking at theirs as well. Yeah, I know. I think of gambling addiction, so I don't know. Maybe I'm too focused on the not so good sides, but you're looking at the adventure and the thrill and those kind of things.
Well, it's like any true crime, isn't it? There's something alluring about it. But yes, I remember when I lived on the Gold Coast and there was a big investigation in, I believe, the Crown Casino with relation to suspected, major heroin traffickers that were, spending big at the casino. Of course they do. So they put a temporary ban on them, if I remember correctly, from, while they're under investigation. And so Jupiter's Casino were happy enough to fly in helicopters and bring them over to Queensland to gamble because they're not under investigation in that state.
Yet. Yeah.
The money is money. They don't care where it comes from. But yeah, that goes back to when you see stories of known crime family. It's like, well, if you know they're criminals, why are they driving around in Maseratis? Because, I can't do 60 and a 50 without getting done. But which I've been done twice. So thank you, speed cameras, for getting me when sneaky streets which look like they should be 60, but technically they're 50, even though they're pretty much main roads. Nonetheless, the next book I would like to talk about is called Club Cargo, once again by Mr. Jack Kregas. And Club Cargo reads as follows. Neighbourhoods in Boston during the 1960s were in the grip of Irish and Italian gangs. Willie Shine was a young gambler with an ambitious proposal to open up a nightclub. Permission from gangster boss Jack Ross was needed. What could go wrong? Club Cargo became the in place to be in Boston until it was attacked in a drive-by shooting. Who was to blame? Who would benefit? Willie was left without knowing who or why as he followed a trail of deception to an unexpected showdown. An insight into the world of gangsters, gambling, trust, deception, and revenge, written with the slang, the music, and the values of the era. That is Club Cargo by Jack Kregas. So yes, another, I guess it's something a little bit different because this one's set in the 1960s and his new book's set in Las Vegas in the 1970s. So definitely a bit of a theme there, but wow, both sound so cool. Both of them sound, I think, a little bit like, something, if they were alternative movies, you'd get Quentin Tarantino to do or Martin Scorsese,
yes.
But I guess Martin Scorsese
kind of
did
gritty,
do it with Casino.
dark stuff, yeah.
So again, by Jack Kregas, who we're going to have the pleasure of listening to very shortly. But yes, that's just a couple of books that you can find on the Australian Book Lovers website. So you've got Swords of Deception by Rowan Staeffler, which you can find under fantasy. You have Caim by T.S. Simons, which is book 4 of the Antiquity series, to be found in the science fiction genre. We've got A Flytrap Fiasco by author P.A. Mason, which you can find under our mystery and fantasy genres. And of course, you have The Vegas Transactions and Club Cargo by Jack Kregas. Both can be found under our mystery genres. And you'll find many more titles, should I say, by Mr. Jack Kregas under our mystery, under our contemporary, under our non-fiction, under our young adult even. He is a very prolific writer who has showing no signs of slowing down.
Yeah.
And that is some of our cool books for this news episode, for episode number 26. Yay!
Do-do-do. So many good things to read. So many good things. And I must say that currently I am reading Her Last Words by one of our authors, Kim Kelly. And it was very hard to stop reading it and to get on with doing some research for this episode. So thank you so much, Kim, for writing such a compelling book. Yeah, not the sort of book that I would necessarily read, but after chatting with Kim on the podcast and looking at the blurb and just getting a little sneak peek at the first couple of pages, I thought, yeah, I have to have that one. So, yeah, it's amazing how in such few words she gets you engaged with her characters, and just you want them to, do things or succeed or get better or whatever. Yeah, really good. She's just fabulous. Anyway, that's what I'm reading at the moment. What are you reading at the moment, Darren?
What am I reading at the moment?
Yeah.
I have actually started yet another non-fiction book at the moment, which I very rarely have the time to even get into. So it's a little bit of a science book, but I'm still looking forward to being able to sit down and just read for a bit. I haven't had that much time. But it's definitely, as we were discussing, the to-be read pile grows bigger and bigger. Yeah, so I have a copy of Kaiju, We Call It Monster by Lachlan Walter, who was kind enough to sign it for me. So yes, a little bit of a treasure there. So I'm definitely going to have I started reading that one, but I haven't had a chance to finish it yet. But that's such a cool idea with the monsters popping up, and rather than just being one story about the monsters. It's actually all different. Each chapter is a different impression of what's happening from a different time and a different location and a different group of people. But all of it's set nonetheless in Australia. So very cool.
Good.
So yes. So hopefully there'll be a day coming soon where I can. Well, maybe I was thinking about it. Maybe I have to go and invest in the good old-fashioned beanbag and make that my official living chair. So once I land in it, you're not quick to get out of a beanbag.
No.
So I'll make that the rule of the house. If I'm in the beanbag, get the book in hand.
Perhaps you put the pile of books to read next to you so you can easily reach for the next one in case you finish.
Yes, and then I'll have to have an escape plan in case I do tear it or rip it and get those damn beads everywhere, and then I can default. And then I'll blame Bobby with a text message.
Absolute nightmare. Yeah, there you go.
Yes, because you can't vacuum them, can you? Because
no.
The static pushes them away.
Yes, yeah, hideous.
Maybe I need to invent a new style beanbag that will become matching with my hot water bottle, Jack.
Look out, here comes another patent nightmare.
Yes. Yes, I'm just thinking now. Well, I have tried the blow-up stuff. They're no good, obviously. Yeah. One little pop and you hit in the ground. So, well, waterbeds, maybe we just bring the functionality of a waterbed to lounge furniture. I think that can be done.
There you go.
Again, you'd need to have some sort of temperature control. So there's nothing safer than electricity and water as part, being close to your skin. So yes, I've got my ideas are already happening.
Oh, this is a worry. All right, well, we better go to the interview and have a listen to what Jack Kregas has to say. Yeah,
absolutely. So this is a really cool interview with a gentleman who has definitely taken life by the scruff of the neck and had a ball, basically. And there's so much to talk about, but I think the best thing to do is just to let the interview speak for itself because, ladies and gentlemen, this interview with Mr. Jack Kregas is fantastic. He's got awesome things to tell you about. He's lived plenty of adventures. So without further ado, don't worry about my beanbag ideas. The most important thing is this interview. Here we go. Welcome, everybody, to the Australian Book Lovers podcast. And most of all, welcome to our next very exciting guest, a Mr. Jack Kregas. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure and very much looking forward to this conversation because of all the authors, you've probably, well, for one, you've got the most amount of books on our website at the moment, 12 in total, which I'll go through the list in a moment. And by the sounds of things, you've lived a lifestyle that many of us will probably be envious of. So for our listeners, before we get to the nuts and bolts and learn a bit about you, I'll just let people know that from what I've read, you were born in New England in the northeast of the United States. And after a stint in the US Army, I understand you were discharged in Europe and then spent the next 40 years skiing and living life to the max, as well as creating several successful businesses before moving, of course, to the lovely country down here called Australia. Now, in relation to all the awesome books you've popped on or been so kind enough to list on the Australian Book Lovers website, those titles include Club Cargo, It's All About Me and a few others, Cruise Lines, Mystical Glasses, Innocent Retribution, Loisa's Caribou, Contested Ransom, Detective Sunset, Tall Tales, which is a 3-book trilogy, as well as Slick Justice. So thank you so much for all those submissions. How do you find the time to write all these books?
I wrote the first book, and then and before that, I'd never written anything except a postcard. And that was refused a few places, so I changed it around and ended up with a publisher and published that book. And after that, I liked the idea, and I always had a lot of stories in my head. So the second book was Choice Cruise Lines, which I still think is the best book I've ever written. That's my opinion and some other people's. And then that next year, I wrote 4 books and then 3 books. And now this year, when I've had more time because I've been trapped at home with the pandemic and everything, didn't write any books at all. And I started a book about a month ago, which probably could be finished by June, I hope.
So at least you've got the wheels in motion for 2021. Yep. It's a funny thing, you're not the first person to mention that although there's these lockdowns or suddenly you find yourself more time, it doesn't necessarily translate to a shot in the arm when it comes to the creative process. And look, that's a whole other discussion for another day. But yeah, some of us have managed to, to do some work in that time, but others, I guess it's more of a time of reflection, and hopefully that means bouncing back in 2021 with more energy than ever for our artistic endeavors. But I guess where I'd like to start in our discussion today, Jack, is the book It's All About Me,
Yes.
which is obviously, well, not obviously for our listener out there, but which is an autobiography. Now, the synopsis in essence says that you chronicle your life of hedonistic pursuits from the army to St. Moritz and on to Verbier in the Swiss Alps, to the atolls of Polynesia, to Hawaii and Australia. It is a life that has been lived full of fun, without responsibilities, as many ladies as possible, while having the time and some luck to start successful businesses along the way. Now, I've read a small quote from yourself saying that you wrote this book as a document to inform your aunt as to what you had done with your life, and that when you told her you would send it to her, she said, "Don't bother, I don't want to read it." And therefore you made it more explicit and into the book that it is now. So I guess my first question for you is, did your aunt end up reading it?
No,
Oh,
she never read it. She died about a month later. Maybe I did kill her. I don't know.
oh no.
But no, she never read it. And actually, once she sent me back that letter, said she wasn't interested. Then I changed the book around. I sent it to a publisher who instantly refused it, giving me all kinds of grief about it. And that made me more determined than ever. And then I found another publisher who did publish the book, but she wanted some of the people in it that are well known on the cover and this kind of thing. And I wasn't, the book was all about me and a few others, not about somebody else.
Right. Yes.
So I got out of that. I got out of that arrangement, and then I republished the book on Amazon. I self-published it, and that went very, very well. And that book sold in over 12 countries. It's a book that sells all the time. I don't know if people. I know at the beginning a lot of people bought it because they wanted to see if they were in it. But it's a good story, and it started me on my way of deciding to write books. I never knew I had any ability, but I had a lot of stories in my head, so I went from there, and it was a very good start, actually.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear you say that, because that was going to be one of my questions. As in, obviously, you've throughout your non-stop, your heart pulsing adventures, that's obviously a definition of your lifestyle for such a long time. I was curious as to whether writing was a feature through any of those adventures, in the sense of maybe journals or documenting. I know you did say you did write a few postcards. So was the writing more something that came once the adventures and endless amazing experiences settled down, or was it in your head while like maybe a note here, a journal there, or really something that once you settled down and the train came to a bit of a pause, you jumped into it?
I never take any notes. I never make an outline. I don't do any of those things that probably normal people do. When I finished that book, that was in my head, and I had it basically done. And then I did a trip to Europe and a trip to Florida, and I met some of the important people that were part of my life and in that book. And some of those things I'd forgotten, so I had to go back and re-edit and put that in because there were important points. And after that book, I wrote Choice Cruise Lines, which is an uplifting book about euthanasia. And it's a story about 4 different people. And these characters were so important to me that after that, I thought, I have a lot of stories in my head and I can keep on writing, because I play poker professionally. So the next book was Mystical Glasses, started out as a poker book and then went on to be a stalker thriller.
Well, as it does, of course, the two things go hand in hand. No.
Yeah, so I really don't, I have an idea, it's in my head. And basically in all the books that I've written, and I think this is probably with many people, some part of their life is in that book, or some part of your thinking is in that book, or somebody you wanted to be is one of those characters. So I think that it comes from that. You have an idea and then you expound on it, and then it goes on. And I think that's basically what happened with Mystical Glasses. I liked the guy that I created. I thought he was a good character. I thought he was a strong character. So I wrote 3 more books with him in it. And then Slick Justice was a spin-off from one of those characters in those books. So it sort of builds up like that, I think.
Just a quick glance at your collection. That's obviously still going to grow. It's pretty obvious a lot of your work definitely doesn't belong into any just one genre. You definitely cross a lot of genre boundaries. Do you think it's the case that your autobiography really was the springboard, and then all your subsequent novels, which obviously transverse across all these different genres, are they all based on, like, are they experiences as part of your life that you reflect back upon, and then that all turn into a story? Or is it just more your imagination going crazy after beginning the writing process?
Well, I think I wanted to just change the whole situation. I had some ideas in my head, and that's when I decided to write that first book, Tall Tales, a book of short stories. And one of those short stories, the first one, was a story that was partially in the autobiography, but wasn't expounded on as it was in the short story. It's really a longer version of a short story. Mm-hmm. And then some of those other short stories in those 3 books, the Tall Tales 2 is a lot of personal things that happened to me and another friend, some medical situations that were kind of crazy. So that was in there, and then other things related to it. And Tall Tales 3 was stories that, came into my head from whatever reason, where I was. One is about a nursing home because I was visiting somebody there and I didn't like the way it was, so I made a story about it. So the short story genre I like a lot because it's quick, it's easy to read, and you can have 4 or 5 different stories in the book. And that Tall Tales 3, I think, is a very good book of short stories because there's 6 stories there that are completely different genres, completely different stories, different themes. And I like the short story concept, actually.
Yeah, it was interesting to say that short stories is going to be a new feature that we'll be adding on the website very soon, because it's something I want to get back into and explore, the art of writing short stories, for exactly the reasons you just laid out. Just the opportunity to get all different styles down and explore a few different emotions, settings, stories, and obviously it's not going to hurt when it comes to your skill as a writer by the more stories you write.
Exactly. I think I like the short story thing because, like, 6 completely different stories coming from different angles and different places. I think it's interesting for the reader, and in a time when readers have less time to read, a short story they can read before they go to bed, and then it's over, and the next day they start a new one. It doesn't take days to read it. It's not a thick book. It's a kind of short stories are something, sign of the times for people who have less time to read.
Yeah, and it could almost equate it with the idea of streaming too, where you want to be able to just flick through and go, that sounds interesting, and that you can just invest a bit of time to really enjoy it, have the full experience, and then you can move on and hunt the next experience. So yeah, definitely, I think short stories are an amazing avenue that, like I said, I'll be pursuing. And by the sounds of it, it's not something that you're going to give up in a hurry either.
Well, I was lazy at Christmas, actually. I put out a book of Christmas of the best of the short stories. So I took from the 16 short stories in the 3 books, I chose 6 that I liked the best and that I'd had the best feedback on from other people, and put those out as a Christmas book.
Oh, okay. And is that something that you think you'll continue doing each year?
No, I don't know. I also put out all 4. I put out the 4 Joy Moretti books as a book set. I put out the 2 autobiographical books as a book set. I thought book sets would work, but they, because you're getting 4 books for $8, which you're normally paying $17, $18 for. But it's not. I don't think it sells very well, actually. What sells is new books. If you write a new book every 6 months, you sell lots of books. Not only a new one, but you sell the old ones. If you don't write any books, the books go off. There's 1,700,000 books to be published this year, some figure like that. That's crazy. So basically, unless you're very famous to start with, you're lost in the forest completely.
Well, yeah, to a certain degree. I mean, it's definitely a big mountain to climb, isn't it? And, with all the technologies changing, the publishing machine changing, and it's a catch-22. We've got so many tools at our disposal now as authors, as far as obviously the writing process, editing process, even if you want to self-publish, whether it be digital or paperback hardcover, then you've got all these tools, whether it's social media, advertising, research capabilities. There's so much there that such a massive war chest of artillery to combat the challenges of getting your book out there and getting it, more importantly, getting it into readers' hands. But at the same time, it's a constant battle of learning where to use the tools, which tools to use in what area, and by the time you work that out, the battlefield may have shifted a little bit. It's a constant learning process. But you're right. I mean, that's the challenge of a writer, isn't it?
Well, I can write a book in a month. If I sit down, I can write 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 words a day, depending how much effort I want to put into it. But the story's in my head and it just keeps going.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't get stuck with writers jam up or anything like this. The story's there, I can make it come out. But if I spend a month working on that book, 3-4 hours a day, I then spend 3 hours marketing this book. That's what takes the time. And if you stop, the book sales stop. There's a lot of people won't agree with some of the things I've said, and I get arguments on social media about it all the time. But I'm personally against giving away books because it's completely the wrong system. It's been proven that people who give away books, people who take free books, they don't usually read them. They're collectors. They never write a review. And thinking that if you give a book to somebody, they're going to buy your other books, that doesn't work very well. It may work for some people, but generally it doesn't work. I don't believe that social media sells books either. I mean, if you're funny and you put a lot of other things on there and 15 to 20% of the time you put something about a book, but the rest of the time you're putting something silly or interesting, you will find someone who will follow you who may buy your books. But paying on online, Twitter, Amazon, or wherever to sell books, basically you'll never ever get your money back. And I've talked to a lot of people about this. So the marketing side of books today is a very difficult process. It's discouraging in a way. And I speak to people all the time. They haven't sold a book in 6 months or something. And I've read some of their books and the books are very good. It's a very difficult process that, with newspapers, the newspapers are reviewing books, and I've sent my books to newspapers to be reviewed, but the big companies block newspapers from reviewing books by independent publishers. So, they have you blocked at every turn. It's a very difficult situation. That's the most discouraging part of writing. So I fall back to the thing, if one person reads my book and enjoys it, then I'm a success.
Well, and I did read somewhere that you mentioned, as far as the odds of being a successful writer are they're so astronomically high that you've chosen poker as a backup profession, which I thought was funny yet ironic. But I'm just curious, over the years that you have been writing and have been selling your books, and obviously you mentioned you've sold in over 12 countries. Is there any rules or any methods, any tricks, any secret, not secrets, so I'm not going to reveal secrets, but any methods that you've discovered that may still have merit or maybe have remained consistent through the changing landscape of marketing?
I've been lucky because I've been selling things my whole life. We had businesses, the whole business was built on selling. I know how to sell. I know how to market. That's really my ability. So for me to market or sell books, I find it much easier than somebody else who has no experience there. And still, it's very difficult. There's a couple ways if you want to sell books as an independent author. The only way to sell them really is to get in front of somebody. One place to get in front of is retirement villages. These people love you to come in. You get 40, 50 people listening to you. You give them a speech. You buy them a bottle of bubbly. Everybody's happy. And you end up selling 30 books and getting 25 to 30 reviews. That's success.
That's a very interesting approach. I've never thought of that or considered that.
And that works very well. speaking engagements like the Dublin Writers Conference and these other ones, if they do it properly, you can get in front of people. I give speeches not about books and not how to write, but one speech I gave was called Never Miss a Chance. I mean, people do miss a chance. When they meet somebody, they don't say, hi, I'm an author, here's my card. Every chance you have to put out your business card and tell them you're an author, you have to take it. I do it at poker tables. I do it all the time. It's hard on social media. I mean, I just don't believe it works, but it works in front of people. If I can get in front of somebody, I can sell a lot of books, and I can create fans out of some of those people who continue to buy my books. But if you can't get in front of people today, it's very difficult. And I think that some people are afraid, they're self-conscious about speaking or something like that. But you can do it on a basic level, on book clubs or on your kids' mother's meeting group. Every chance you have, tell people who you are. And that's a sure way of having success with your books.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And although, look, the jury's still out from my side when it comes to social media, I have had, seen results, but I think it's definitely not the be all and end all. I think you're absolutely right when it comes to getting out there face to face, and it can start with something as simple as a business card. I know I've got business cards, and at first, look, as a when you start out, or for many of us authors out there, it can be a little bit daunting and a bit self-conscious at first. But like you said, you just make it a habit, and you don't. It's not like you're going to say, "Hey, let me talk to you for the next half hour and tell you about my book." You just give them a card and say, "Oh, if you're interested," because if they're not, they may know somebody who's interested in your style of writing. They may look, and obviously, you want your card to give some very fast visual indication of what style you write. For example, they say, "Oh, you write horror. Okay. Oh, I know somebody who likes horror." They may slip that card and go, "Oh, I met this person." So you're right. The fate out in the community is a really good, important way to do it. I mean, I know I've been guilty coming from the old band days. Even recently, I've been very guilty of doing the old hit the Office Works, print off 1,000 or 2,000 flyers and just bomb universities and windscreen wipers. It's a day out, you get a bit of sunshine, and you just never know your success rate.
And markets are very good too. There's a bookstore in Monday. They let you sit out front of their shop, sell your books on weekends, on market day. That's a very good idea also. That works. Any way you can get in front of people is a good idea.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you're definitely true to I guess a philosophical approach to life that I read, and that is that you're always keen to stretch, ignore, or even break boundaries. It definitely sounds like when it comes to not just marketing but the sales process, you definitely think outside the square. And I don't for a second believe you're going to be restricted by any simple rule book. I'm just wondering, when it comes to your writing, do you also bring that philosophy of accept no boundaries and go wherever, or is that where you do rein yourself in a little bit?
I know some writers, but I don't know them very close or very well. And I've never sat down with somebody who's a great writer and sold 1,000 books and list them, how do you do it, or how do you write, or anything like this. I think that if you write a good story, if your story's clever, somebody reads it, they're gonna like it. Tell me your question again exactly.
So when it comes to, in some of your author bios, it said that you're keen, or you enjoy to stretching, ignoring, or breaking boundaries, and that's in general when it comes to life, as far as a philosophy. So I was just wondering, when you sit down to write, is that a philosophy that carries through to your writing process, or when it comes to writing, because you want to be so true to the story that's in your head, is the writing process one aspect of your life where you actually do allow boundaries to come in, perhaps with a few rules, or do you consciously go in and say, I'm going to write this however I want?
Yeah, I write it however I want.
Yeah.
Every one of my books, I've been all those places. One of the Joy books, the Contested Ransom, takes place in Mexico. I was in Mexico for 2 weeks. Slick Justice is a bit in Russia. We went to St. Petersburg for a while. So all those places in the books, I have been actually there. The hotels are right. The the city is right. So all that's good. The weapons used in the books are the weapons used if I was a general or a general read the book and he'd say, yeah, I would take that weapon myself because that's the best one for the job. But in one of those short stories, I wrote about a house invasion happening in Australia. And actually with no guns around and whatever happened, the guy busted into the house on this old couple and he actually burned a guy up with a blowtorch. So, you know,
you got to use what's available.
And then he had this homemade blowtorch from a gas can that he used to kill weeds with, you know. So the wife ran around the house and got this, and when the crooks came out, she lit them up. Anyway, the story then goes on. You know, in Australia, you're going to get sued all over for, you know, hurting these people who were there to hurt you.
Well, assuming they survive, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So, you know, then the question came, do we have to leave the country, sell up and get the hell out of the country, or do we stay here, get sued and lose everything we've worked our whole life for? That answers the question. So, you know, if I think it's important, I don't care about the rules or whatever. I just put it out there.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, some people dislike it. I mean, I talked to a woman the other day who thought one of my books were too cruel. You know, it was a vigilante book. The guy's cruel. He's a very nice guy, but, you know, if you do the wrong thing, he gets worse than you are. You know, so you don't please everybody. And that's the same in anything you do. Nobody can please everybody. Some of the people, some of the time, some of the people all the time, but not all the people all the time.
No,
you just live with that.
Yeah, and of course, if you're trying to please everybody, then you're not being true to yourself, are you?
No, not at all, not at all. And you know, I play poker 2 or 3 nights a week, and last weekend there's a big tournament for 4 days and all this. And there's an old guy that I gave a book to about a month ago because he was reading books when he was playing. So I gave him one of my books.
That's a way to intimidate, I guess.
Yeah, I gave him one of my books, and since then he's bought 3 or 4 of them. I gave him another one. But he's passed these books out, and it's amazing how many books I've sold because of this one person.
Oh, there you go.
So, you know, every little thing, like I said, will help you. And it's sometimes places you don't look at. You look, oh, boy, I'll do a lot of ads on Amazon. I'll spend a whole bunch of money. You can do that. You may sell a book or 2. You never get your money back.
No, I think, you know, that your philosophy is a very good one. And that is, you know, don't put yourself in a position to miss out on a chance. But really, I think what you're saying is create those chances too.
Exactly.
Every day is full of chances. You just got to identify them, and if they're not there, create them. Because as long as you're stepping out the front door, there's going to be some option or some, you know, ability there to try and generate a bit of luck and a bit of chance and a bit of serendipity for yourself.
You know, there's another problem that's coming into this, what you were saying with the technology and the ability to do books and everything. You know, people self-publish books, and I went to a book sale, actually. About 25 writers got together and rented this place and brought their books. And it would probably have worked well, but they charged too much to get in. Nobody had any money left to buy books. But I was given some books and read some of these books. And there's a serious problem with this self-publishing thing. Is most people, they write the book and they don't have the money to have the thing properly edited. And if you put a book out that's not properly edited, it gives a bad reputation to all writers. And nobody wants to read something that's completely badly punctuated, wrong verb terms, etc. So everybody needs a writer, and an editor. I always push that. Get an editor. That's the most important. The cover is important also, but the editing the book properly is very important if you intend to sell any.
Yeah, I think proofreading and editing. And, you know, one of the biggest pieces of advice that I've seen time and time again when it comes to self-publishing and trying to sell your work, and that is people are always going to be more likely to at least look at and consider your work if you've got more than one book. And I think I think the big issue is, and it's a human way of life that we learn as we go. So there's a lot of books out there that are by authors that have written their first book that may have never gone on to write a second book, and therefore never reach that point of discovering in the learning process, oh, wow, you know, because they're discovering more about the craft, and a lot of times, I mean, I myself went back and have done, and made huge changes to one of my earlier books, but at the time you're not aware of what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know.
That's exactly right. I'm a little interesting that I write say 2,000 words today. Tomorrow I go back and write and look at that 2,000 words I wrote and change something or whatever, and then I write 2,000 words for tomorrow. After that, I never look at the book again, and until recently, I'd never read one of my books.
Oh, as in never read it from cover to cover, rather
Never.
than in. Wow.
I gave them after that. I give them to the editors. She looks at them. She understands me. She says some words. What do you think about this? I don't think this is the right term. I don't. This is something nobody's going to understand, because if the books are in Europe, I'm using metric. If the books are in the States, I'm using another system. So then I jump back and forth. So she straightens all this out, because the editor needs to know you and what you're trying to say and how you write, and that helps. But after that, I give it to her. I've never read them after that. It's just during this time with this pandemic we're home, I decided to read a couple of my books.
Wow, to break the spell.
That's the first time I'd ever done it.
And how was the experience?
I thought there was things taken out that I thought should have been in there, but maybe I forgot and put them in and I didn't remember. Actually, I thought it was good.
Well, that's a good. Well, maybe it's something you'll now add to your writing style. But
in fact, it was so good I actually read. That's why I read another one after that.
Well, there you go. There is a silver lining on the pandemic.
Yeah.
Now, have you worked with the same editor for most of your career?
Every book has been with the same. Well, every book has been with the same editor.
That's fantastic. And
there's two editors.
Mm-hmm.
One edits it, sends it the other, and the other changes things, edits, sends it back. They work together. They ask me something or don't, and then they put it together.
Oh, like a two-step verification process.
Yeah. And then the other thing for book covers, that picture on It's All About Me, that's a picture of me in the freestyling days. The other book covers, I found the photos, did the picture, and then I had somebody, a graphic guy, put it together what I wanted. But Mystical Glasses, I actually took that picture myself. It's on there. Then he worked the night lights and the different bits about it. But since then, I've done most of my own covers, and if I want them formatted and sent so they'll get them on Amazon or get it into the paperback, I just use somebody on Fiverr, and they do a good job for $30-$35.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good tip too. If you are looking to, get that intricate formatting done, definitely Fiverr or is an option to look at if you're not familiar with how to do it. So when it comes to covers, you prefer to have full hands-on, no decision, like no outside
because
influence?
The thing about the cover is what's in the book.
Mm-hmm.
It has to say something about the book. The cover also, you got about 3 seconds to catch somebody's eye in a bookshop or someplace to pick up that book.
That's
if
right.
you don't get them immediately, it's like packaging in a grocery. If you don't get them at that time, they're going to walk right by it. So the book the cover and whatever written on there has to go together to get somebody's eye. That's important. So basically, I'm hands-on with the cover. I may not have the final say on the font. Somebody who's graphic can say, look, that font's no good for that book, blah, blah, blah. But basically, the last one, Club Cargo, I did that complete cover. And basically, we do all the formatting in the house now. There's just about everything. We can do just about everything on a book in-house. And with that, when I go and speak, I tell people, look, if you need any help, I'm here to help you, because somebody always helped me. So you got a question, I'll help you. And it's nice to get somebody that's serious that wants to write, but they don't have the technology or the experience to know certain things. And when you can help them, it gives you a good feeling too. You're doing more than just writing. You're helping somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And in a way, it's kind of like, you can write, you can be a musician and write fantastically or stunningly beautiful piece of music or a song, but that doesn't mean you have the skills straight away to get it recorded.
No, exactly.
That's a whole other, can of worms in itself, because you do studio, what's, you know, the whole aspect of recording, but ultimately that process is still about capturing that song that you wrote. So I think it's very similar. So you can write a fantastic story, but then there's that whole new element of how do you bring that story to life in the sense of as a book that's, you know, a marketable product. And just like a song, you can write it, you can, you know, play it, for example, anywhere you go, but if you want it to be a marketable, consumable product, then it does require that other step. So, and you do need help, because that's the only way to learn, is to get those little kernels of wisdom from other people that have embarked on the same journey,
Exactly.
face the
And
same
that, you know,
battle.
that's why I've been able to write so many books and get them out so fast, is because we do it all ourselves. So it makes it easier, and it is not expensive to do now that we know how to do it. That's what holds some people back. And I think the other thing in writing, it holds people back. And I always tell them this, you know, they have the idea that what is my mother going to say, or what is my friend going to say, or who's going to like it, or who's going to read it, and how do I do this, how do I do that? And I always tell them, forget all that stuff. Just write it down. Once you get it on paper, then you can do something with it. But if you're worried about getting it on paper, it's never going to have to start with.
No, it's like putting the filter on before you even begin anything. And
That's
therefore
right.
there's going to be elements that may not come, that will the filter is going to capture, that may have been really important, or you know, may have been a little bit of treasure for the story.
That's why people ask me, what's your best advice to tell somebody who's thinking about writing? The advice is simple: write it.
Yeah,
Put
get
it on
down.
paper. Don't worry about punctuation. Just get your story out there. If it's a good story and you get it down, you can always then go back or have somebody go back and put it into the right shape it should be. But if you never get it down there, nobody can help you with this.
No wiser words have been spoken, and definitely getting it down that first time. Don't worry about the commas. They'll be that little evil devil on both shoulders soon enough. So it's no point accelerating that process.
Once you get it down, that's why I'm saying sometimes I write more because I'm hurried to get it out of my head while I still have the thought. And I go back and read it the next day. There's words missing, you know, the wrong tenses, wrong words, wrong everything. So I can correct that there, so at least the editor will know what I'm talking about. But get it down. That's the thing I would tell everybody. Don't worry about what people are going to say, what they think. Just get it out there, and then you can work on it. And I think that's the secret for somebody who wants to start in writing. Because people say, "Oh, I've always thought about writing something," but I guess they didn't, because they didn't do it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, if you're thinking about it, do it. Otherwise, yeah. Now, you've mentioned poker a couple of times, and it's obviously a great passion of yours. And I understand that, you know, prior to obviously the situation we're in with travel-wise, but you did do a lot of traveling to play poker.
Yeah.
Now, I don't play myself, but I have to imagine there must be some, you know, truly unique characters on the circuit. Yourself being one of them, I would hazard to say. Have any of the characters you've met in the poker world made it into tales? Obviously, Mystical Glasses, I'm assuming, probably has a few. Or
have they made it into the books?
Yeah, like, have you met any like really unique characters in the poker world that have inspired or even become characters in any of your stories?
No, I would tell you no.
Okay.
The people in the poker world, yes, I have some friends. There are certainly some characters out there. And the poker today is from all walks of life, because 2 weeks ago we did a tournament over 4 weekdays, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that paid out $2 million in prize money. $2 million. And this was like 25 events, from buy-ins, from $10 buy-ins to $5,000 buy-ins, depending on what you want to do. But so there's a lot of characters out there. And poker in Australia today, the prize pools are greater than anywhere else in the world for the amount you have to pay.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I paid a $450 buy-in to a tournament last weekend, and the prize pool ended up at $191,000. The winner got $75,000, and they paid down to 10% of the field, and the last guy in the field got $1,200.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty awesome.
So that's why there's so many people doing it, because there's so much money out there. And now in this area, because the casinos have been closed in Sydney and Melbourne, in this area, every month is a major 3 or 4 day tournament. And 3 weeks ago, they had it at the racetrack on the Gold Coast, because they usually have it in the Tweed, but they were worried about the border being closed. And they had more people than ever has played poker in the Southern Hemisphere over that weekend.
Wow, that's pretty spectacular.
It was huge. It was
yeah.
huge. And there are characters. And to answer your question truthfully, I don't pick Bill Smith, who I know playing poker, and put him into a book. But I take Bill Smith, Teddy, Raymond, Joe, Tilly, and make one character out of all those people.
Yeah, of course.
And
little
they get
idiosyncrasies from each of them.
And they get into the book.
Oh, there you go.
So,
yeah.
Not one character, but one character, a conglomeration of characters make up this person. And I think that's probably more interesting, because the person has more dimensions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I when you mentioned about Tweed Heads having lived on the Gold Coast, I can't imagine the chaos there with the border, considering it's literally
it was chaos for a while.
Yeah, obviously you can cross the road there for a coffee in New South Wales, and then cross the road, you're back in Queensland. But
you went across the border for a coffee, took you 3 hours to get home.
Yeah. Well, you usually go back and forward in time, if I remember correctly, during daylight savings. Speaking of Gold Coast, I remember living down there, and the Tweed there was in not the New Year's Eve 1999, when they thought the world was going to end, or at least technology, the computers were going to fail. So I remember standing at Palm Beach having a beer on the beach, watching over towards New South there and Kira and all that, thinking, well, they're having a New Year's Eve an hour before us, so we'll see what happens. And so the fireworks went up, everything celebrated, the lights stayed on, and then I knew we were okay. And then I just could relax a little bit and wait for the Gold Coast New Year's Eve an hour later.
The world didn't end, right?
Beg pardon?
The world didn't end.
No, not at all. No. I had a world-ending hangover the next day. I remember that vividly. But I think the Gold Coast in general is you wake up with a hangover. That's just the beauty of the place, and the waves, of course. We've got a lot of listeners out there that I think would love to jump in and learn a little bit about some of the adventures that are awaiting them should they want to begin the Jack Kregas journey with your autobiography. Now, I'm guessing, I haven't had the opportunity to read it yet, but I'm guessing it is, full to the brim of adventures and experiences that probably many of us haven't had the opportunity to experience and indulge in. So I'm wondering, for our listeners out there, would you possibly be kind enough to maybe give us a tantalizing sample or two of some situations, some madcap story adventures that we maybe that we're going to find in there? And that'll also give us a good little snapshot about who you are.
Well, I mean, I got out of the Army in Munich, and I went to Garmisch, and that winter there was no snow in Europe, and I had like $400 to my name. And a guy I knew had gone to St. Moritz to play guitar in a restaurant, and he called me up and said, that's the only place in the Alps where there's snow. So my old Volkswagen died, and I left it by the road in Garmisch, and I hitchhiked to St. Moritz. And I remember I got there on New Year's Eve, and the snow was just falling down, and there was all these Ferraris and Rolls Royce in front of the Palace Hotel, which at that time was probably one of the top hotels in the world. And it was like a magic land. But, within a week, I had a place to stay. We were teaching skiing, teaching disco lessons in the afternoon. It was unbelievable. I stayed there 8 years.
There we go. The overnight 8-year stop. Yeah.
Yeah. And then after that adventure, I wanted to leave St. Moritz. I had enough of someplace must be better. And a guy told me the best place to ski in Europe was Verbier. I went there. I had a Porsche 911. A friend of mine had an E-Type Jag. We rented an apartment from the end of, I think it was like the end of March until the end of the season for $400, a 4-bedroom apartment with a fireplace.
Oh, half your luck.
And there was 200 chalet girls there, between 18 and 22 English chalet girls that worked.
Double half your luck.
It was just, after that, I stayed in Verbier the next 30 years. But it was the best mountain. It is the best mountain in Europe. But now I was there last year, yeah, 18 months ago, 2 years now, really. It's for St. Moritz was very big at the first one I went there. Now St. Moritz has fallen off, and Verbier is the place to be, snob place in the world, full of Russians. The place is destroyed. When we got there was 4,000 rentable beds. When I left there in 1995, there was 44,000 rentable beds, and now there's over 60,000.
That's a pretty exponential growth there.
Oh, it's unbelievable growth. And then another great story, and probably the story of my life. We had a ski shop in Verbier, so we went to Las Vegas for the major ski show in the world is in Las Vegas in February. I met a guy called Ron Rice who owns a company called Hawaiian Tropic, which is the world's biggest sun product. And we imported that, and we spent the summers then going around all the beaches in the south of France selling sun product. And we had no money to do it, but in 10 years of sun product with Revlon, they acquired 0.5% of the French market. In 2 years, with no money, we acquired 10% of the French market.
Oh, fantastic work.
We had 4 Swedish girls in grass skirts, topless, with spray bottles walking up and down the beach, spraying suntan lotion on guys' bodies.
Well, that's one way to get the sales up.
We put the product in the stores and say, if you don't sell it, we'll take it out. We send the girls down the beach, product sold out within the next day.
Wow.
And probably the other great adventure in that book was because of that success with Hawaiian Tropic, we sold the company back to the major company in the States. A guy offered me to run some radio stations in Reno and Carson City, Nevada, which I did for 6 months. But, I was into smoking and joking, and everybody I was working with was worried about mortgages, families, kids, and I didn't, there was nothing happening there. But a friend of mine had a boat. He was going to sell it, and we decided not to sell it. There was a 22-meter motor sailor, and we sailed from LA to Polynesia, and we stayed in Polynesia for 2 years freediving.
That is a massive jump from skiing the mountains of Verbier.
Right. I probably spent more time in the water with more sharks than most people on Earth, because every day where we were, there'd been no people in some of these atolls for years and years. There was 40, 50 sharks around you at all times.
Wow.
And you were afraid because you knew what they were. Sharks are like dogs. If the dog's coming at you with his hair up and is growling at you, you get the hell out of the way. If a shark's coming at you doing his dance, you jump back in the dinghy and leave him alone. But basically, it was just the most amazing experience I've ever had in my life. And it's something you can never forget. And interesting for your readers, on my book, particularly that book, there's 40 photos in there of people they may know. Most all readers will know some of those people in that book. Paul Newman, for example, who drove a race car with us in France that had Hawaiian Tropic on it. We spent a whole week with them, and different people. But if they buy the ebook, all those pictures are in color. And if they buy the paperback, they're in black and white.
Oh wow! Because it's usually the other way around for a lot of books that have just minimal, well, not minimal, but like they're not like a nonfiction or something.
But the cost to put color pictures in a paperback book is very high.
Yeah,
you'd have to sell it for about $49.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, that's some inspiration for our readers out there. Definitely get the color version.
The paperback sells for I think it's $10 or something like that, and the ebook is selling for $4.99 or $5.99. But all those pictures in that book are in color, and that's worth it in color.
Well, I'll definitely be grabbing a copy because I want to hear about some of these adventures.
It's a very interesting book, and there's some things in that story of that interest some people and not other people, and so somebody always got something out of it that was interesting for them.
Yeah, and that's what the whole goal of it, isn't it?
And it is explicit. Somebody may not like it. This first publisher who shot me down in Minnesota, he told me no woman would ever buy that book. It's egotistical, blah, blah, blah. But from my research, as best I can figure, and I trace it pretty closely, at least 65% of all readers of that book have been women.
Well, there you go. You can't always. I mean, a publisher has an opinion, but it doesn't mean it has to be right.
No, and you think the other thing it happens today in a lots of ways, and writing books has made me understand this, particularly when the editor goes back and says you can't say this, you can't say that. That book was written from when I was born until 1995. So the major of that book, the thrills and spills in that book are between the 70s and 80s. And what went on in the 70s and 80s is not what's going on today. And what was acceptable then is not acceptable today with political correctness and all that BS. So, and if you write any book, and if I write a lot about gangsters, like Club Cargo is about gangsters in Boston, Irish gangs and Italian gangs running Boston. What they did and how they spoke is not what's acceptable today. And people, instead of saying, oh, that's terrible, you have to sit back and say, but at that time, that was acceptable. That's how the world was. Too often they don't do that. They try to take the time ago and put today's principles on it.
Yeah, I do understand what you're saying. And I think the irony is you've got, like, for example, true crime, in whether it be in literature or documentary film, is so popular. There's nothing acceptable about serial killers, and yet,
No.
But people love it. Like,
That's right.
So you're exactly right. It's, you know, if you're capturing something that happened, then that's what happened. And, you know, by trying to go back in time and change something because it doesn't fit into today's paradigm, you know, really that does make no sense at all. And I think sometimes it's more an observer trying to use that as a way of, you know, making obvious their morals as opposed to, you know.
That's right. Yeah, you're absolutely right there. And you know, if I write something today, I write it within the norms of today, within how people look at things and how they adjust to things today. But if you're writing something about how you lived in the 70s and the things you did, that has really nothing to do with today. Because
no, and I don't want to read a book about the rock bands in the 70s that were all drinking cups of coffee and went for morning jogs, and you know, having not grown up in the 60s, I don't want to suddenly find all the 60s stories have been sanitized, and rather dropping acid and
exactly.
They were, you know, became house painters and decided to build flower gardens.
And I mean, I think that's one of the thrills of books or TV or anything else. It takes you back to another time and shows you how it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I love, you know, autobiographies and biographies that take me to different, you know, lifestyles, different eras. It's absolutely fascinating. And yeah, sometimes they're way beyond what's acceptable. I guess if you were to try and live that same lifestyle, you know, if pluck that individual and have them do the same things in today's environment,
impossible.
But that's
in jail.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I mean, that's what's so inviting about a lot of these tales, because, hey, who doesn't want to read about somebody who broke the rules? Because, you know, I don't want to break rules, but I don't mind reading what it's like. I'd like to, for a moment, you know, open a book and discover, you know, what it feels like, or the emotions behind breaking rules, or doing something that may not be acceptable. So,
you know,
absolutely.
we started a company in Switzerland with no money, which today would be impossible. They wouldn't even let you in the country. They'd throw you out of the country. It's impossible to do. We did it at that time because people didn't know what was going on. And before they figured out what was going on, when they tried to get to us, everything was in place. So we didn't break the rules. There weren't any rules. We didn't see any rules.
You basically traversed the land and then worked out what's going to work. And the rules come later, don't they? Especially when you know, from... You know,
like I said, like we often taught, like part of when we set up the ski business, you know, we may go broke. We came here with nothing. We can leave with nothing. So what?
Yeah, well, and so you always leave with memories. So you're always going to be a winner no matter what.
So that was the attitude. And I think that attitude at that time was what you needed to be successful. You did what you had to do. You didn't worry about if you had the right permit. I mean, we weren't allowed to be in Switzerland except from the 10th of December to the 1st of May. But we were there in September building the shop with the windows blackened out, slept all day and worked all night because there were no police around at night.
You've got to find the ways around it, don't you?
You just find a way to do it. You just did it, you know. People don't do that today. I think that's sad in a way.
No, but I think autobiographies like yours are going to be, you know, a wealth of fun, adventures and information more than ever now, because I know we were talking very briefly offline before we started recording about this situation, but the ability to just travel footloose and fancy free, you know, go to different countries, get into adventures, find yourself broke and stuck in some land and try and work your way out of it. I think it's going to be a while if we can, or, you know, before that sort of environment's going to return, you know, especially when it comes to international travel.
You know,
and that means going to your stories, books like yours is going to be so fantastic until, you know, to experience those sorts of things until we can be in a position to do it ourselves again.
You know, there's so many people, there's at least 10 people in that book that arrived in Verbier within the first few years when we did, that arrived with a pair of skis and $5 or less. And within a while, they had a job, they were skiing every day, they were doing what they wanted to do, and they're still there today. They're still there. A famous photographer, a great mountain guide, they found a way to do it, but they came there with no idea.
Well,
they just
no
heard
idea,
about it.
But also no boundaries, no limits, and
No boundary, exactly. You know,
anything's possible.
And they made it work because that's where they wanted to be. That's where the fun was. That's what they wanted to do. And, you know, it worked fine. I mean, we brought the first skateboards to Verbier that we picked up in Las Vegas at the ski show when they first got the real proper trucks on the skateboards and the polyurethane wheels. The wheels were terrific where the old ones were no good. We brought the first ones there, and the first day of spring, we used them down the roads in Verbier. The cops stopped us and fined us for not having a license on the skateboard.
Are you serious?
Serious.
How do they write? Well, where do you get a license for a skateboard in Verbier?
That's what the mentality was at that time in Switzerland.
Wow, there you go. So, and
but, you know, that was just the way it was then. You know,
are skateboards still prominent there now?
Yeah, I mean,
longboards probably now as well.
Yeah, it'll be different, but you know, Verbier's from where the bottom is, Verbier's at 1,500 meters, so it's 4,500 feet. Down is at 1,000 feet. So you can go down that road on a skateboard. It's steep and it's curvy and it's a lot of fun in the spring and in the summer, and ways to do that.
Now, did you capitalize on your skateboard sales with knee pads and stuff?
No, we didn't have knee pads. We didn't have helmets. I mean, I had a mountain bike my whole life until I got to Australia. When they told me I had to wear a helmet, I never had a mountain bike because I refused to wear a helmet.
Yeah, and that was a bit of a shock when it came in.
I was skiing 2 years ago, or 3 years also, 4 years ago. I skied two different winters. I went to Austria to visit some friends and ski. I was the only one other guy on the slope without a helmet. I refused to wear a helmet.
Is it something do you mind if I ask what, I mean, I hate wearing a helmet as well, but
they won't let you up a lift in most places without a helmet. Yeah. And you know what the reason for this is?
Insurance?
It's because they changed the skis so everybody can ski within 2 days, and they groom the slopes so the slopes are smoother than the carpet in your house. So anybody can go out there and go like hell, out of control, and crash into somebody. You definitely need a helmet under those conditions.
Ah, okay, yeah.
But when we were skiing, nobody groomed the slopes. You had moguls that were as deep as halfway up to your waist. You had to know how to ski. You had to know how to turn because the terrain was very difficult. It wasn't a manicured highway. So, you know, you didn't fall on your head. You never crashed into anybody. There was not many people around. But now you got a place that's good for 400 people. You got 4,000 on it, of which half of them are out of control going in all directions. You need more than a helmet. You need a suit of armor.
I was going to say, if I found myself on that hill now, I'd probably want to wear the helmet.
Yeah, you would. I just refuse to wear it, but you know, when people laugh at me, I don't care. But you know, old habits die hard. I never wore a hat. I just didn't like hats, so I don't wear one. But there's a lot of there's some funny things in that book that will also make not only adventure, but will make you laugh when you think of the situation at that time. You think, how the hell is that possible? And today it's a joke, really.
No, and I think a good laugh is something we all need. Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
Need them more now than ever before.
Absolutely. Now, Jack, it has been so fantastic talking with you. And look, to be honest, I don't know if I can not compete, but can match many stories as far as my adventures so far, although I've had a few. But I am going to possibly contest you in a friendly manner about the shark thing. So I'm wondering, when you were doing your diving, what was the most, what would you say was the biggest number of sharks you were with at any one point?
40.
40?
Yeah, all around me.
Yeah, I don't know if we'd be about even or look.
Okay.
I might say, yeah, go ahead.
These were gray reef sharks, right?
Yep.
And in Polynesia, gray reef sharks bite you 99% of the time. If we jumped in the water and we saw white tips and black tip sharks don't even count. They're not, they're like pussycats. You don't even consider them sharks. Gray reef sharks are dangerous. You got to know what you're doing. If a big ocean white tip shark came from the blue, you got in the dinghy. If a tiger shark, you saw one coming, you got in the dinghy. If a lemon shark came by, you got in the dinghy. Some sharks you don't mess with. You look at them, hey, this is your turf, I'm out of there. You get in the dinghy, or you get beside the dinghy and watch them. But gray reef sharks, they're big, they're 2 to 4 meters, they're big around. You can shoot a fish. If they can, they'll get the fish off your spear before you can get it out of the water. And that's why you need 2 people working in tandem with each other. But really, we never had a problem with a shark. We never shot a shark. We made a deal. I don't eat you, you don't eat me. Peace.
Yeah, that sounds like a good deal to make.
But if a big white tip ocean shark, which has nothing to do with a white tip reef shark, this shark is big, it weighs 2,000 pounds, it's cruising around, it's looking at you, you just let him look at you and you got the hell out of the water, You go in and hung onto the dinghy and watched him swim around, and if you wanted to fish, you went someplace else. We never used tanks. This was all free diving. I could dive 3 minutes free diving at 20 to 30 meters.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And is that, so I've always wondered when it comes, before I tell you my shark story, when you do your free dive, that's exhaling and going down, or are you inhaling and holding?
That's hyperventilating.
And then exhaling?
No, just hyperventilating and going down. You're wearing a weight belt. You don't have on any watches. You don't have anything. It creates friction, no rings, no watches, no knife, none of that stuff. You just have the gun. You go straight down. It brings you right down with the weight. And you can stay, up to 3 minutes. But we did a test. You could have sex all night. You could smoke a lot of dope. You could eat healthy foods. You could drink 20 beers. All kinds of situations we tested to see if it made a difference on any given day, how long or how deep you could dive.
Mm-hmm. In the name of science, of course, yes.
It didn't make any difference.
Oh, really?
Holding your breath and free diving is a state of mind. Some days you can go 30 meters, no problem. Some days you go 10 meters and you got to get out of there. You just can't do it. And it's all in your head. If you hyperventilate, it's charging your head full of oxygen. Your head thinks you got a lot of oxygen, and you often run out of. One of Apollo's friends that were on the boat, he died. He went down 20 meters. He only came up 18 and blacked out, died.
Oh, no.
And, that's the danger of hyperventilating when you free dive, because it makes your mind think you have more air than you do.
Yeah.
And that's why you always dive with 2 people, one down, one up. Never 2 people down at the same time. Because if the shark comes up at you after your fish, the guy on top dives down at the shark and smacks him on the nose and he goes away.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, I do a little bit of breathing exercise every morning, and essentially exactly what you've mentioned, hyperventilate, and then I exhale and just relax. And fascinating you mentioned how you tried the different experiments, because I don't always, but I towards the end I'll time, because I do it for quite a while, and I'll time it. But I found the same thing, that it didn't really matter what I had done physically, but it was always mental. So, for example, some mornings when I was, I admit it, listeners, a little bit too hungover, I'd sit down and just do some breathing just to get the day underway. And I'd find that because I was still somewhat very relaxed and calm, especially obviously your heart's calm with alcohol, just the exhale the breath and just went forever, which would be the opposite to what I would have thought. I would have thought if you,
That's right.
you know, wake up a little bit feeling a bit seedy and unhealthy, you're not going to, your body's going to sort of be angry. But no, it's amazing. And it really is the state of mind. If you start
It's a
thinking
state
about
of
time,
mind. It's
yeah.
100% a state of mind. And I'll tell you one interesting thing about free diving. After you do it about a month, I mean, I never done it, and we trained by, you know, having the anchor chain there and putting ribbon on the anchor chain, 5 meters, 10 meters, 15 meters, 20 meters, 25. So you could look at the top. You got used to looking down into the ocean, and we were always right at the reef where it dropped off into the blue. We could tell what that drop was by looking because we'd done it so often. You were right on, spot on measuring because you trained on the anchor chain to see how far that was.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is that when you're diving like that, and you do it after, you know, we were in Papeda and we used to debauch there for about 2 weeks, and then we get in the boat and go to the atolls where there's nobody and stay out 2, 3, 4 weeks a month. It's amazing how your whole head clears of any kind of anything in it, mucus or anything, and the food and everything. Your sense of taste and smell is more acute at that time than it's ever been again in my life.
Wow. So you don't do the breathing
in
still
your head.
now?
Pardon me?
Do you indulge in any breathing activities now? Like,
yeah, I just try to breathe to stay alive.
Well, yeah, that's a good one though. In fact, I recommend that for everybody. I've been fascinated with the deep diving. One of my favorite movies of all time, actually. I've got a feeling you might have seen it, The Big Blue.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, you know, fun movie. But I always trying to hold my breath as a kid. I love going underwater. But you're obviously in Queensland, and I lived on the Gold Coast and worked around Gold Coast, Hinterland, Brisbane for many years. But so you obviously be familiar with South Stradbroke Island there.
Yes.
Yeah, so we used to get the water taxi and go surfing over there as often as we could. Beautiful break there.
Beautiful break, yeah.
Yeah, so myself and a friend of mine, we were sitting there waiting, you know, in between a set, and it was like someone flicked a switch. The water started to boil, and birds started dive bombing from above, like literally smashing into our heads, and fish were landing up on it, hitting us in our chins and landing on the boards. And of course, when we looked down, the worst thing you want to see, I don't know how many, there must have been at least, I call it 100, maybe that's like, you know, that fish I caught. But do you know when the bait fish come down and the sharks circle?
The sharks circling around.
Yeah, so the bait fish came, we got right in the middle of the bait fish, and those poor fish, they were coming up. Of course, the birds were getting the fish from the top while they were escaping the sharks from the bottom. But so the only thing we could do is put our feet on the boards with this huge shark feeding frenzy, you know, exploding underneath us. And it was an epic piece of nature that I got to experience. I'd hate to think how many sharks were under there.
Yeah, you want to get out of there if you can, or just put up and just sit it out. Hope you don't get accidentally get bumped off the board.
No, we had a helicopter had to come and come right down to swirl it, like to move it on a little bit, just to give it avenue to get out. But yeah,
because you know, sharks in Australia particularly and everywhere, sharks get a bad rap.
Yeah,
sharks don't eat people. They eat people. They take a bite out of you by accident because they think you're a turtle, or they think you're a seal, or you're sitting on a surfboard and you're looking like a turtle. So they take a bite out of your leg. But you never hear of a shark taking a bite out of a guy's leg. Then he came back, bites off his arm, and then his buddy comes over and takes the other leg. That's doesn't happen because a shark bites into something, and what he eats is full of fat like a seal, and he feels that. When he bites into your thigh, he doesn't feel any fat. He doesn't like it. He spits it out.
Yeah, and that's the old saying, like especially now that I'm down in South Australia, you know, I love seeing animals when I was in the water, you know, up in the East Coast there. Down here, I love the dolphins, but still, you know, if something big pops out of the water, you got to be careful what it is, because obviously we've got plenty of great whites straight along the coast at the end of the road here. But the saying goes, like, the great white doesn't want to eat you; it hates the taste of you. It's just that if it takes a nibble, those teeth, that nibble is going to be enough to kill you.
Yeah, but you see, in Polynesia, there's no great white sharks, so you didn't have to worry about it. The water's too warm. So there's no great whites there. So the most dangerous shark that you would see in Polynesia is a tiger shark. He's not going to eat you, but he's big. If he wants to eat you, he will, right?
Oh, they're big animals.
You see him, you admire him, you say, you're beautiful, and you leave him alone because he's just too big and he do what the hell he wants. And great whites, sure, they'll eat you if they want to. And they can mistake you for food. But basically, these people getting eaten here are bitten by bull sharks or reef sharks or things like that. It's an accident. The shark makes a mistake, and then they want to kill off the sharks. I think those long lines. I'm against all that. I'm for the sharks because I spend enough time with them. I know they don't do any damage to humans intentionally. I mean, in Polynesia, the people get bitten a lot, the Polynesians, because they go down, they shoot a fish, the fish is jumping around, they put it under their arm and start swimming up, and the shark comes up and bites off their elbow because he's trying to get the fish.
Yeah.
So you see all these guys with these huge scars on their elbows and their arm. That's why.
Well, I mean, look, people don't mind going, back in the younger days, but people don't mind heading into the city and getting blind drunk and, getting into trouble and riffraff, knowing that something bad could happen. There's a lot of people out there on any given night in any big city around the world has got some not nice characters, but that doesn't dawn us. And it's the same with the ocean. I think the ocean is one of the last magical realms of monsters, and that's kind of part of the excitement of heading out in the water. And I don't want to be bitten by a shark, and I don't want to be killed by a shark, but at the same time, it's kind of the beautiful part about the ocean. If I'm not surfing or if I go for a kayak and paddle right out, I know that I look like probably a big seal or something from underneath. And kayaks are even dodgier to get bumped off because at least a surfboard you can scramble on or use as a defense shield. But so when you get out there and you're on your own, you can spook yourself a little by starting to look down and think what's under there. But that's kind of the excitement. Get the hairs prickling up on your arm and the back of your neck.
Paulo told me when we started on this boat adventure, Paulo, he said, there's one thing you have to understand. When you go in the water, you're going into their world.
Absolutely.
And you're a guest in their world.
Absolutely.
And you have to treat them like you're the guest. And if you respect them and their world, you won't have any trouble. And we never did.
No, and the same thing goes for the ocean itself, doesn't it? She just demands and deserves so much respect because the ocean can put you in some really perilous situations if you're not careful, and especially if you don't go out there with the respect that she deserves. And for me, and again, I think that's one of the wonders of the ocean and stuff, because it can turn into your worst nightmare in a moment and then be stunningly beautiful the next.
It's the force of nature. I'll tell you an interesting story. When we used to leave for Peta, when you're free diving there, you have a dinghy and you go out to the pass with the dinghy. So you need a dinghy driver. So the guy goes out there in the dinghy, and what he does, two of you, one is on top or one is down, and the guy's pulling the dinghy behind you. So when you shoot a fish, you come up. The other guy is there to protect you in case the sharks come up. You go to the dinghy, the guy pulling the dinghy jumps in the dinghy, takes your gun, takes off the fish. The other guy in the water is protecting you with his gun. He gives you back your gun, you do it again. So you need the guy pulling the dinghy. So we had this guy from South America. He was from Brazil, a young guy who was just backpacking around, and he was in Papete, and we saw him and we talked to him. We said, we're going out for a couple months, and he had to cook, make some pasta at night or whatever we were cooking and pull the dinghy, and we give him $100 a week, and that was it. So he said, great. And we were out maybe 10 days, and we're in a place there's no people. If you cut yourself, if you're trying to open up a coconut to get the water with a machete and you cut yourself, you're probably going to die. You have appendicitis, I'm going to do the operation. Anything you do, mistake, you think before you act, because you're so far away. There's no communication, there's no telephones, there's no helicopters, there's nobody. You die.
Nothing but serious consequences, yeah.
But this guy, within 10 days, he went insane from the force of the nature.
Oh, really?
It's the wind, there's no people, there's no planes going over the sky that you can see. the night sky looks so close, like you can touch the stars, because there's no lights to anywhere. You're at the end of the world. And he became so crazed from just the force of the nature that we had to lock him in his cabin.
No.
And we had to haul down. Some of these atolls, there's a guy has a fish farm, has a lot of chicken wire and the fish swim in the tide, and he captures them there, and a boat goes by once a month and picks up the fish and brings them into town to sell them. We had to find one of these trawlers that came by and put this guy on it to send him back, because we were afraid of him. The nature made him crazy.
Was it you think it was sudden isolation if he's from Brazil? I guess he's obviously from one of the highly populated areas.
It was there's always some wind, and you look out and you see nothing. We're the only people that exist, really. There's nothing to be seen. There's no place to go. There's no radios. You had a Walkman or something, but that was it. So, and the wind is always there, and the boat is moving, and you get used to it. You feel the force of the wind. I mean, you feel it. And we always brought girls that flew over from LA, and then we'd fly them to an atoll, which we go by on the way to where we were going, because you didn't want white girls on the boat, because when you're in Papeda, the black ones won't come if they see white ones there, so you don't mix them up. But that's just the way it was. But these girls that we brought from LA, who'd never been in the water, never seen these fish, within 2 days, they could do all kinds of things. I remember Paul and I sitting on the deck, smoking a joint, and these two girls are on the shore. They'd been there about 3 days, 4 days. They're walking on this atoll, getting coconuts and picking up some shells or whatever. And Paul said, if we left, what do you think they'd happen? He said, they'd probably die within a month or so, or a couple weeks. But 10 days later, in another atoll, they were doing the same thing, and we asked the same question. We said, we come back in a year, they'd still be here, because they knew how to get coconut, they knew how to get the water out of the coconut, they knew how to build things out of palms, they knew how to find coconut crabs, they knew everything to survival.
Worked out the terrain, made a plan, and adjusted.
And they weren't afraid of the shark. The first one they went in the water, the first time they jump in, they look down and see 10 sharks. They went crazy. But
well, you can't blame them for that.
But afterwards, when you explain to them how it is, they recognize what kind they are. They know everything that you teach them. They get absolutely comfortable.
Well, like you said, you can't please everyone all the time, but no. And then there's the proof in point. What some people are going to call it paradise, some people are going to go insane.
Yeah, I mean that was a very eye-awakening thing to me, to see this guy who was a really nice guy just lose it completely.
Yeah,
I think it was isolation. Probably is the best example of what it was.
Yeah, it's funny because for me, I think isolation is great. I don't mind it at all. But it's when you're out somewhere like really remote, and for me, what's really eerie and can kind of get on my nerves, not get on my nerves, but it really becomes at the forefront of my thoughts, is when there's absolutely no wind. And when things are still, like someone's hit the pause button, because I live by the coast, so it's pretty much always got some sort of breeze. And that's, for want of a better word, it feels unnatural. Obviously it's not, because it's nature, but that one plays on my mind a little bit if it's like that for 2 days, 3 days, where not even a leaf is rustling. But otherwise, the wind can be your friend.
I mean, it's like everything in the life. You got to adjust to your environment and adjust to where you are, and you can't try to change it to make it what you want. It's there, it is. You have to adjust to that. And I think that's a lesson that you learn, and those kind of lessons, made me be able to adjust to different things. Those experiences with the sharks and like that, they come in the books and in the characters in other books, because the mentality of it is still there.
Well, thank God you did have all these adventures, because now there's a whole collection of books for everyone to enjoy. I'll definitely be grabbing the autobiography, and I may even talk to you off air about getting a signed copy at some point. But Jack Kregas, thank you so much.
Here's the other.
Go ahead, please.
Here's the other thing that's really discouraging in Australia. If you want a copy of my book and I sign it and I give it to you, it costs me $13 to mail it to you.
Yeah, actually, that's come down a little bit because my last book was a bit of a big one, and it worked out to $19 at the time to post it anywhere, and that's not good at all.
No, I mean, a friend of mine wanted a couple books to give at Christmas, and I said, I'll give you the books. I don't care, but it's going to cost you. If I send 2 books to you in Melbourne, it's going to cost $27.
Yeah, that makes no sense. Look, I don't know 100%, but I know that they've changed things a little bit where rather than weight, I think it goes by what'll fit in certain size satchels.
Yeah, they
So,
does. But
yeah, so I think
the
it's like,
autobiography is just heavy enough to jump over that size limit.
oh, really? Oh, yeah. So it's
Where
about,
the other books are smaller. But that's, I don't know about other people that much, but I sell 80% ebooks.
yeah, well, it's because that's such an easy format for readers to grab because if they're excited by the book, they can be reading it in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, is really important. If there's a book I really want to get, it's because I really want to read it. And then I don't want to wait 2 weeks or whatever it could be, because that's the other thing here. Sometimes when you're getting stuff mailed, it can take a little bit longer than what you expect.
Look, I'll send you the book. I'll send it to your email. I'll mail it out to you today. I'll send you the ebook.
That sounds fantastic to me.
I'm
Well,
happy
there you
to
go.
do it.
And
I'm
I'll,
happy to do it.
and I'll be happy to get stuck into it, and I'll do a review for you on the podcast.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I really
yeah.
appreciate talking to you. Not only about our books, but just talking to you and get to know you is very nice. We have done some things in common.
Yeah, thank you. Well, yes, shark's one of them. Lots of things maybe to talk about in the future, a few adventures, and some may be a little bit explicit as well. But Jack Kregas, it has been amazing having a chat with you. I really do appreciate you taking the time to be a part of the Australian Book Lovers podcast, and I really want to take this opportunity to thank you for allowing us to list so many of your your works, your literary releases, because as I said, I think you're definitely have more content than anyone so far as the number of books that you've submitted and have listed. And I just really appreciate you trusting us, supporting us, and for helping to make the website, build into and grow into something really special.
I've told about 4 or 5 people about you that I know that are authors around here that I know, and told them about you. And, I hope that works. Also, one of my books there, Los Caballos, is a children's book. It's a children's short story. I went to the Philippines to meet an author who was in the Philippines, an English guy who wrote quite a good story of his life. He busted the biggest LSD ring ever in the UK.
Oh,
and then he got busted himself, so he's hiding out in the Philippines. Anyway,
oops, daisy. Well, that's what happens when some spills, doesn't it?
I went there, and he said, "Look, I'm doing a Christmas thing. I need a short story about something about the Philippines." So I wrote this for him, and then I put it out. It's online. It's $1, I think. But it's a really nice children's book, particularly because the hero is a little girl.
And that goes back to your keen ability and willingness to not be pigeonholed in any one genre.
Yeah, that's a good story for a girl, 8, 10, 12 years old. It's a really nice story.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we may have to make that a feature of the week very soon so that people can discover it. And we'll be definitely working hard, Jack, to get as many readers to enjoy your work and all Australian authors. But again, thank you so much for chatting today. Yep. I hope 2021, as it rolls out, is a lot better than last year. Not saying that last year was bad. Some of us had still good things to report and good adventures to have. But regardless, I hope for yourself and your family, the rest of this year is spectacular.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your time. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. We'll be in touch.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Jack.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And thank you so much, Jack, for an amazing interview and, such an awesome and thrilling insight into just a few snippets of the life he's led. And it was just a great fun having a chat with him, and really made me think about, how important it is sometimes to just take that leap of faith when it comes to adventure. And adventure could be in any form, whether it's a simple decision that maybe puts you out of your comfort zone, or it's grabbing a ticket, jumping on a plane and heading to a country that you have little or no idea of or about, and are just willing to land and just discover it. Life is all about making those decisions. And yes, it's important to have I guess, routine, which we all do in life. For example, we have to keep the podcast coming. We need a routine. There'd be no point not knowing if there's another one coming. But there's also, jumping at opportunities that life throws our way, because it's, as we discussed in the last episode, we're only visiting the planet. And, it's important to, when there's opportunities to discover a little bit more, why not just take it with both hands and go for it.
Yeah, and it's interesting. There's I was looking up sort of adventure stories and thinking about those kind of, why is it that we love adventure stories? And a good adventure story has the ability to draw us into a world we might otherwise never explore. So this is from a website called elementalscience.com, blogs, news, reading. We're caught up in the story, learning as we go, even if we weren't intending to. So, you might learn of how a hang glider works, or the sound of a storm, or what it feels like to wake up on the ocean. So it does throw you into physical, it tends to be kind of, physical action, danger and impending doom, which, hopefully most of us don't experience, and thinks about how the protagonist manages that risky situation, makes you wonder how you'd react in that situation. It was really good of Jack to share all of his stories and to tell us about the true tales putting in, as well as then he's used obviously his own experience to build characters that then help us think about adventure and what we do in those situations.
Yeah. Speaking on behalf of myself, of course, adventure characters, for example, your Indiana Jones or your Han Solo and all those things, or all the books I've read where, whether it be mystery or science fiction, it's all about that going on an adventure.
Yes.
Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit, it's all about adventure. And I can't just wake up tomorrow and decide to go on an adventure. Of course, that's not the case. However, I can,
unless you get discovered by the secret society that decides you're the chosen one, and you suddenly wake up and you've got magic at your fingertips, or dragons drop down. So it could happen tomorrow, Darren. It could,
Well, yes,
aliens.
It could. Yes. Or my waterbed beanbag idea becomes, a global sensation. I become a multi-billionaire.
Yes.
And then I have a helicopter to take me wherever I want me to go. But no, I think, you can, I like bringing a little bit of adventure just to, everyday life. Is easy because, for example, if you're going to go to the beach, choose a different beach you haven't been to before. If you, or if you're driving to work every day, which I did for a long time, and I will be again soon, but on the long commutes, take a different road every now and then. It's so exhilarating, which in the most unexpected way, when you break up your routine. So even though you can maintain your routine, but you can still shake it up a little, and it gives you a little bit of a sense of excitement. And it's something I've always tried to do in life, is just try and shake things up a little bit. And so even if I decide to go to a different shop, to get my carrots and onions, a shop that I haven't been to, I feel like Indiana Jones when I walk in there, because you know what? I haven't been in there. I'm discovering something brand new.
That is a really good attitude to have.
Yeah, dodging darts, and I know you're looking for booby traps. As I go down the aisle and go, "What? You really want to charge me that much for a bag of carrots? No wonder I never come here."
Very good.
But yeah, so adventure, we need it. It's good for the soul.
We do.
It can be found in the smallest or the largest ways. But
I like that. Yeah. I also looked up, when I was looking up adventure stories, Readsy.com had the 100 best adventure books, which was really interesting. I have read some of them. Some of them are classics like, Don Quixote, Treasure Island, and Journey to the Centre of the Earth, all those kind of things. But then they break it into adventures in the jungle, adventures in the desert. So, Dune. Of course, I'm going to tell you the sci-fi ones, and fantasy ones, such as you mentioned, like The Hobbit and those kind of things. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Around the World in 80 Days, all sort of fantastic early stuff. But then The Martian by Andy Weir, The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, Becky Chambers. So all about, accidents, adventures, action. Yeah, lots of really good things.
And, there's an ironic twist to chatting about adventure and talking about adventure in our lives, because, so for example, and as you were mentioning, it's all about being to be able to through a character discover a unique situation and discover that adventure, but also then prompt your own questions of what I would do in that circumstance or what the reader would do in those circumstances.
Yep.
So imagine writing a book about, something that's turning the world upside down, and how you would cope with, constant chaos and unsettling notions of not knowing what's happening tomorrow. We are living in that now at the time of recording. And so, yes, it's not a good situation being in a pandemic, and as we're recording, Australia's on the cusp of possibly another outbreak, and we don't know what happens day by day. But to try and put a little bit of a shine on what is essentially a dull rock, we're living in an adventure right now. And so think of yourself as being an adventure story, whether if you're in lockdown, okay, well that's a story, isn't it? It's an adventure you're having while you're locked down, and you're a part of this situation, and you're a unique character. And what's a character going to do? They may upskill themselves, they may turn to art, whatever they might do, but it's a story. It's a story being told. Your life story is being told during a moment of what is history. So we are all together in an adventure right now, an adventure story that we don't know the ending just yet.
Yeah, this is too true.
Yeah, so I don't think it's too naughty to search for a little excitement in something that is beyond our control, because we can definitely feel the panic, we can definitely feel disheartened, we can feel confusion, we can feel anxiety. These are definite emotions that are warranted on 100%. But let's maybe try for a little bit of excitement as well. We're in an adventure at the moment, a global adventure as part of the human race, and no one knows how it's going to end. So everyone's going to have a unique tale to tell. So right now we are writing history, and we're writing our own personal stories that perhaps we can tell generations in the future. So yes, true. Thank you, pandemic. I have a new story to tell from my little personal Indiana Jones world.
Very good.
I have used travel and adventure as a little bit of a prompt for my quotes today. What did you use for your quotes?
It was adventure, and it was also about taking action. So I'll give you my first one, which is from Oprah Winfrey. So the biggest adventure you can ever take is to live the life of your dreams.
Yes, well, exactly. And there's only frustration if you're not doing something towards living your dreams, or at least bringing your dreams to life.
Yeah, leaping off those mental and emotional cliffs, sometimes physical, if your dream is a physical thing, but to actually do that is the biggest adventure. That's the most risky, that's the most enjoyable, the most educative, and all those kind of things, and can be the most entertaining. But yeah, the biggest adventure you can ever take is to live the life of your dreams. Thank you, Oprah Winfrey. And she certainly did that.
Yes, 100%, yes.
Yeah.
And that's what adventure's all about, isn't it? Not knowing what's coming next. So by chasing your dreams, it's scary for all of us, because you're stepping out of a known plan, a known roadmap.
Yes.
We stick mostly to establish roadmaps in our lives, which is what we should do generally, because obviously we can't have chaos reigning everywhere. However, aspects of your life, I think sometimes you need to incorporate off the map travel, whether it be, your soul journey, your spiritual journey, whether it be a physical journey, whatever it might be. Yeah. Live your dreams, or at least get them happening.
Yes. So what have you got for us?
So I've got two very short quotes based around a similar thing, travel and adventure. So I have one by Hilaire Belloc. Now, the quote is, "We wander for distraction, but we travel for fulfillment." So I thought that's cool. Yeah, so sometimes we do just wander around because we may be aimless wandering. Traveling is one aimlessly wandering as well, but it comes with a different sense. I think it comes with fulfillment. So I like that.
Yeah, the need for different and new and those kind of things. Yeah, and as we're thinking about doing a 4-day weekend, long weekend down to another part of Victoria, because let's face it, that's about all we can go at the moment. It is about a sense of fulfillment, making that change and having an adventure and seeking and being curious. So yeah, good. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. My number 2 is from an unknown author, and I saw this years ago and have just loved it. you can't cross the sea merely by standing and staring at the water.
Oh, I like that one.
You like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you can't cross the sea merely by standing and staring at the water. And it was at a time where I thought, you know what, I just got to make some leaps. And I think it was, pre-starting my own the first business that I started and those kind of things. And I thought, yep, there you go.
Yes, well, it's like that old, not old, but like the thought that you're not going to satisfy your hunger by looking at the menu.
Yeah. Yes.
It's
Yeah.
just not going to work. Tuck in.
Tuck in.
Eat.
Yes.
Do what needs to be done.
Yes. So what have you got for us?
Oh, no, nice image to my mind of someone standing at the waters and then deciding I'm doing it and walking.
Yeah, well, you as a surfer and kayaker, definitely.
And I guess by default, a Wim Hof method man, because it's very cold at the moment when you're in the water. So to all those ice bathers, yeah, I'm still not sure whether it works or not. I know it's cold. If I get to 100, I can look back and say it might have something to do with it. But,
yeah. Very good.
So my second quote is by Gustav Flaubert. So I hope I pronounced that
Oh,
right.
yeah, I've heard of him. Yep.
So the quote is, "Travel makes one modest. You see what a tiny place you occupy in the world." And yeah, I think that's something that
Travel makes one honest. You see what a tiny... Yeah.
Yeah,
Perspective, isn't it?
it is. Yeah, it is. And I still remember, the first time I travelled to Japan and went up to, and this was in Nagoya, and went up what's called Radio Tower. So it was one of the highest points in the city. And so you get the elevator up, and then you climb a couple of set of stairs, and essentially, it's a wire cage at the top, and you can look around 360 panorama. And I saw the scope, the size of the city was, it just completely overwhelming. It's just indescribable, that sensation when you first see a magnitude of that size. And then, of course, I thought, wow, they dropped atom bombs on cities like this. And then that completely shook me to my core because, we just don't have cities that size in Australia. And growing up in a city here in Australia, it's easy to think that this is, well, it is our little part of the world, isn't it? But,
it's our own experience, yeah.
Yeah, but when you step outside and see some of the other parts of the world, it does make you modest, and it makes you realise, wow, there's a whole world out there. I know it sounds silly and so cliche.
Not really. No, I absolutely agree with you. It does give you that perspective, and you can either choose, I guess, to think, well, I'm insignificant and my life doesn't matter, or you can go, you know what, I'm part of something bigger, and some of the crud or the crap that I was worrying about is not important in the scheme of things because I'm part of something bigger and more beautiful and whole and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, that's right. Yeah, I don't think, to see, per the quote, to see what a tiny place you occupy in the world, I don't think that's to say there's any insignificance to where you occupy, but like you said, to know that there's a huge world out there and we're a part of it. And of course, anyone who's travelled, internationally has probably, will agree with me that no matter where you are and whether you speak the language or not, when you spend time with people, you soon realise that we're all pretty similar.
Yeah.
we
have more the same
foods.
than we have different, don't we?
Yeah. Sense of humour is pretty much almost the same. Yeah, of course, there's, discrepancies here and there, but otherwise, you quickly discover that most people are in the same boat. They are looking for a life to generate, food, comfort, and happiness, and and a sense of well-being, and that's we're all doing it. Everyone's at different stages of that, of course, and have different challenges, but just the sense that we're all on this planet together, which is, I think, maybe where I come from when I always bring up the global idea, because we all, regardless of which city we live in or which country we live in or which location we live in, if we don't live in a city, fundamentally I think we all seek the same thing, and that's just that sense of well-being and perhaps answers as to why we're here.
Yeah. The other side of that coin for me is also going out into the bush, taking a walk around the mountains or somewhere untouched by, or less touched, shall we say, by people and, humanity, and understanding the immense and all-encompassing nature and, you know, animals and plants and trees and the ground and all of those kind of things, you know, the stones around you, and thinking, why was I worried about that, you know, whatever, because here I am on this planet and a part of that ecosystem and all of those kind of things. And that, I like to do that, and that kind of recharges my sense of self, I guess, and also gets rid of some of the rubbish, the superficial rubbish, as we can so easy to get caught up in.
Yeah, I agree with you 1,000%. I mean, this little laptop that's in front of me, it can be the source of so much frustration and anger because it's a portal to, you know, all the negative things happening in the world.
It's right, as well as the good stuff, yeah.
As well as the good stuff, but, you know, as far as what is thrown at me is usually the negative stuff, as far as news and whatnot. But yes, to shut it down and go out in nature. So, for example, in the next couple of days at the time of recording, because we've had so much rain and we're going to have a whole heap more rain in the next 48 hours, we're going to go for a walk in a beautiful part of the world called Deep Creek Conservation Park. And it's just a spectacular place. And there's a big walk. It takes about 2 hours you go deep into this rugged landscape, and you weave your way down to a point where you can visit these amazing waterfalls. And just the fauna, all the changes of the fauna as you're going down. But it's also, it's such a, I don't know, I'm going to say spiritual for want of a better word, because as you slowly weave your way down, and it's a slow slope, you can feel all those burdens of modern life sort of falling off your shoulders. So the deeper you go into this, you know, magnificent landscape, the more, I guess, lighter your soul becomes.
Yeah.
And the more in tune you get with nature. And I've spent a long time, you know, meditating on the idea of, you know, how just spectacular a single plant is, in the sense of it's this amazing, I like to think of it as a software program that can build its own hardware within the soil to enact its own software. And, you know, that's how I like to think of plants. And, you know, it's so fascinating to me. And then as you walk into, you know, when you walk around all the plants, it can be overwhelming in such an almost cosmic way when you realise there's all this life around you. And
yeah,
it's sounding a little bit hippie there, but
no,
no, I think it is. But it is so important to get out there, and I can't wait. And like you said, it's just such a beautiful thing to push away all the worries. Some of them, you know, the worries will be there when you get back. Don't worry about that.
Yes.
But it is nice to have a moment in time where the brain and the heart and the soul doesn't have to think about those things, and just has a moment to reflect on the fact that you're walking in just this magnificent garden on this strange ball spinning in space.
Yeah, one of millions.
Yeah, whether I'll still have those same beautiful thoughts if it buckets down when I'm about 1.5 hours into the walk with nothing but mud and slippery, dangerous hiking back.
Adventure, Darren. Just keep thinking adventure. Adventure.
No, I wouldn't mind at all. I love being out there, yes.
Very good.
But there we go. Episode 26, it's all about adventure and the price of carrots, bags that may be filled with water or not. It depends. Patience pending.
Indeed. And so
fantastic interview with Jack Kregas.
Yeah, and lots of fabulous books for you to have a think about getting, including the shortlist for the Arthur C. Clarke Award. And if you enjoyed listening to us natter on about books and all things publishing, then please leave us a review or a star on your favourite podcasting platform. Or interact with us on Twitter at Australian Books, Facebook and Instagram at Australian Book Lovers. You can subscribe to get access to updates and fabulous giveaways. So head over to www.australianbooklovers.com/booklovers and jump on the subscription, and you can get our newsletter there. So that's about it for us.
Excellent.
For episode 26.
Well, we do have one final matter to attend.
Task, we do. And
So I'm
don't go
thinking
yet.
if
Yep.
I'm thinking maybe a penny for your thoughts. Seems how this is an adventure episode. How about we do an adventure style end tag?
An adventure style. Well, there's so many different sorts of adventures. What were you thinking? Give me a bit more on the theme.
Yeah, that was probably a little bit vague. I'm thinking maybe we lean a little bit back from the microphone and simulate yelling, and I'll put some cool adventure stuff. So that's
Okay.
where, yeah, you know, as you yell with excitement as an adventure. I don't know how to describe it.
Well, you lead
This
us
is
in there.
podcasting on the fly.
All right, leaning back and shouting. Are you ready for an adventure? Don't forget, everybody, to read more Aussie books. Yeah, good luck with that.
That'll work. Yeah, I felt like Tarzan, man. You're beauty. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for episode 26. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I really look forward to joining you again soon. Take care.
Bye for now.
Let's meet again when magic happens.
Australian Book Lovers acknowledges First Nations peoples and recognises their continuous connection to country, community and to culture. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and honour the sharing of traditional stories passed down through generations. We're committed to a safe and inclusive welcome for authors and readers of all cultures and backgrounds, including people of LGBTQIA+ communities and their families.